What is up, everybody? Welcome on in to the Apex Legends Global Series Challenger Circuit number 4, of course, brought to you by none other than SparkSeries. My name is Dandro. I'll be your host for today. I'm joined by two amazing people here are going to be on the desk with me. We got two more in the back. We're hiding them away. They get to come out soon. Don't worry. We're all going to be here, bringing you all the action, bringing you all of the fun. If this is your first time tuning in, let's talk a little bit about why we are here. We had over 400 teams this past weekend battle it out to be able to get to our lobby here today, where all these teams, what are they competing for? It's, of course, those coveted Challenger Circuit points, as well as a spot in that LCQ. We're here. It's down to the wire. This is our last Challenger Circuit of year 3, so it is do or die for a lot of these teams. Now, I said we have two amazing people here on the desk. We got Mellocrit, we got Tenrec. Mello, you were spitting on the timeline earlier about some of the squads here tonight. How excited are you?
I could not be more excited. The teams that have gotten here time and time again, showing up here for the last hurrah of the Challenger Circuit for year 3. It's an absolute treat to follow these players on their journey. So to see a lot of them making their way back here, showing up in a big way, trying to scrape together, like as you said, the last bit of those Challenger Circuit points to try to make it to the LCQ. There's no better time to be watching Challenger Circuit Apex right now.
Yeah, I mean, in Tenrec, right before the broadcast, you were doing the most scary thing a caster can do, and that is math about some of the teams that potentially might be making it to the LCQ. How you doing today? What are you excited? I mean, are you kind of looking at any teams in the middle of the cut, maybe trying to push through that bubble?
Yeah, I mean, if there's any time to be staring at numbers, Dan, I think it's about now. The gaps between these teams have never been more defined, and like Mello said, it's a clash of titans tonight. I wouldn't have this CC any other way. You have this upper echelon that's basically already guaranteed themselves a spot, a really solid pack of middle ground teams that have made the occasional CC and might just have enough steam to carry through, and then you have the lowers. You have those teams that literally cannot get a spot in LCQ unless they win tonight, and there is way more than one of those here. So a lot hanging in the balance just tonight, but even going forward after that, because we don't know how many of these teams will be able to clinch spots in the LCQ going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about getting as many points as you can. Let's bring up just a little bit of the point breakdown to kind of show everybody what we are looking at when it comes down to the end of today, right? We'll be able to have a number of points getting divvied up. So you can see there, obviously that first place, you get the 500 points total, which will obviously go in and matter. Even if you're first place, you get that spot in the LCQ, but your total amount of points still matters when it comes to kind of seeding and kind of which side of the bracket you'll start on. But obviously you can see that sliding scale as we go down. 10th place, 400 points is still a lot of points to add to your team. But like you said, Tenrek, it is still anybody's game. You still need to be trying to be able to get that win, or at least second or third place for some of these squads. You can see kind of as we go down on through here. But we have the points. We kind of know what people are playing for. Let's just talk about what everybody here wants to talk about. We have our teams. Let's take a look at the teams from the different semifinals to see who kind of had to battle their way through here. When we look at semifinals A, we can see Dudes Night Out, Mello, putting up 86 points. Kind of a...
Yeah, absolutely unsurprising to see Dudes Night Out. Very top heavy here. Heavy hitting players on that stack. Of course, with Duplex and Lou, joined by up and coming Roller Fragger in Koifel. Made a big impact, and I expect them to make a huge showing here amongst what has otherwise been the mainstays of Challenger Circuit that maybe haven't had their opportunity to play against some of the heavy hitters of Pro League. But of course, some of the teams that we see throughout here, they have that Pro League experience. Some of the teams that have joined us throughout the Challenger Circuits have had their little brush with that upper echelon of Apex Legends. So a lot of exciting names here. But of course, looking at the score lines, you got to wonder whether those streamer Pro League teams are going to continue their run here in the Challenger Circuit Finals.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to see how do they stack up against some of these squads that we know have been putting in damage in Challenger Circuit. But when we kind of look at semifinals B, Tenrek, who's jumping off the page for you that we need to pay attention to here today?
I mean, obviously, Dojo stands out first. Timmy grabbing Enemy and Designful in there to not only grab really solid sustain going into CC4 for a solid LCQ spot, but a team that has shown absolute dominance across this entire event so far. They are definitely a force to be reckoned with. And then joined alongside them, one of my personal favorites, the Crypt. One of the most consistent teams, not just in this CC, but in last CC too. Such a dominant squad just about every single time. It just comes down to winning the dang thing, which they've had a lot of trouble doing.
Yeah, I'm excited to see TS Mex there, as well as Redeem, some of the other squads that we'll talk a little bit more about. But guess what? We are cooking today, folks. So we got game number 1 ready to go. You can see everybody's dropping on in. We got 3 games of World's Edge, 3 games of Storm Point. Mello, Tenrek, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dandro. This is the last opportunity for points in this Challenger Circuit, points to try and make it to that LCQ. As we drop in for game number 1, we are of course looking out for those early contests that often end up really driving the momentum of some of the teams that are on the losing end of some of those contests. And with some of the caliber of player that we are seeing in this lobby, it's going to be absolutely terrifying. I don't know if anyone's really going to want to take that fight, especially on World's Edge.
Well, we've already seen some micro adjustments coming from these contests. We saw up in Skyhook that most hated Aim No Brain taken different bits and pieces of that region of the map, but they've all sort of bled into each other to not necessarily disrupt one another just yet. So we'll see if that adaptability continues. There were some other contests, but I don't think a single one of them matured. Here's Redeem, though, trying to find some follow-up damage as they have landed down in Fisher. Good circle for them, though. Have to only go a little bit south here for the moment, but until then, they're going to try and find this follow-up damage. Paps gets a good amount shredded, but has to take a second back and Redeem. They're willing to play the long game here.
They absolutely look like they're, at least on the winning end to start, already a fin there from Z Davis. Zone Davis has finally made their way back to a Challenger Circuit final. So it would be an absolute blast to see them try and execute their big brain game plan. But first, they have to win this fight. Nice damage coming out from Paps. And that Massive is just blasting this squad apart. There is one last member trying to run away. And Paps maybe overcommitting to that drop and not finding the shot that they needed with the Mastiff. And now Paps is actually going to get full filmed while the res goes down. Edition will get knocked out. But this will certainly slow down the game plan of Redeem. A 1-0 contest score to kick things off.
Yeah, definitely too big for their britches so early on in the match too. That is catastrophic. So much time immediately wasted. Luckily, Redeem should be able to get a solid recovery though. Poor Edition though, they initially didn't even claim that spot. They were originally going to go down to Mine Pass and Bridge, but you know who was there? Donut Shop. Speaking of which, let's check in on the 2-time CC champs. Mello, correct me if I'm wrong, but these guys have won like 8 or 9 of their last 12 CC games, and 1-2 of their last CC events. Should we not be like a little terrified of these guys still?
I mean, absolutely. If there's a team to be scared of in the field, it certainly is Donut Shop, though you do have to note this is not a team that is walking around the edge, pushing teams, taking every fight. They are probably one of the best executors of that zone gameplay, and led by Davis Wave. Don't get it twisted. Pumpkin Eater, Revenge of Pumpkin Eater 69 is in fact very much a veteran of the game of Apex Legends, knows these zones, knows how to play deep in that zone. So expect them to find a lot of end games, but of course running into that Sheila in the late game is also not the funnest thing to be dealing with. So certainly a team to watch out for, trying to make it back-to-back Challenger Circuit Finals wins here.
And Donut Shop, one of the innovators of that anti-meta that we've seen develop in CC lately, winning both of these past CCs with Jibby Rampart Loba, which I think only 1 or 2 other comps throughout the CC has run. Very few Lobas, but Beamers, another team that has decided to run one and is profiting heavily off of this early game. They were able to snake out really early from Harvester, where a lot of teams are already occupying because of where this circle is tapered. Set up a BM right above the disgusting amount of space that Dojo has managed to take in Thermal Station, and they seem keyed up to stay safe for a good while. But TS Mex does not look nearly as safe, as they have already found some trouble that Chadamus Prime doesn't seem to want to fully commit to.
Chadamus Prime backing up here. This squad has gone through quite a few transformations. This would probably be better suited as Chadamus Prime V3, though. A lot of the original members of the very well-recognized Chadamus Prime from Split #1 have made their way back together. So now seeing Southpaw back in the mix, this is a team that certainly has the type of chemistry you absolutely desire for a team in the Challenger Circuit, a team that meshes well, that knows their game plan well. And of course, another Gibby has to be sort of highlighted here. That is a character that has been largely abandoned by the current meta. So to see teams able to perform on it, I mean, is it the character or is it the player? A lot of times, I think it comes down to the way that you navigate that character, because, man, are there counters against the Gibby in the meta right now?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Too many to count at this point. But, yeah, like you said, those who make it work so well with it. And that's just the dedication that so many of these players have to going with these strategies. Because you're in these finals, and it cannot be overstated how much the environment changes between semis and finals, at a CC level in particular. The amount of cutoff that happens in that, like, split second of a day is ridiculous. You're seeing basically 150 of the best teams in the entire country just get wiped out single-handedly by 20 or 30 teams that still rip these lobbies apart. And then it comes to now. Now it comes to these teams playing that game that they have been waiting to all weekend long. And they're still doing it so well. 2 squads down, and I believe both of them were relative newcomers. I know Addition was one, but everyone playing so safely, playing so beautifully so far.
Slow start here, though. I love to see those teams up and alive going into the middle of the game towards that second and third ring, where some of the fights and the fight selection starts to become incredibly important for making it into that late game. Taking a look at this map, though, you can see where most of these teams have already taken up residence, putting their bets on a zone over here towards the southwest. And we can see from that next ring preview that, in fact, a lot of them are here. I think I only count 3 teams that are outside of the current zone, and just a handful more that are about to walk into the next one. So absolutely focusing on where that zone is going, where they need to play, where they need to defend. But looking at that edge, Tenreg, definitely a team that we have to keep our eyes out on. Dude's Night Out, absolute PL caliber, absolutely terrifying on World's Edge. I would not want to be running into that team anytime soon. So as this next ring closes, some of the squads that are sitting over on the east side, precisely where teams like Most Hated are hanging out, are definitely going to want to keep tabs on all of the predators that might be lurking along the edges.
Most Hated is a team that has really slid under the radar a lot of the time, but they have done incredibly well in CCs, to the point where they are currently the only team aside from Donut Shop who can still clinch this #1 CC seed. That is how far ahead these two teams have gotten. Most Hated is the only one in reach of potentially grabbing that 1 seed higher. But they still have so much work to do to even get there. And like you said, Dudes Night Out, another team to watch, they also have a lot of work to do. Currently, they're 15th, which is not necessarily a guaranteed point. It is pretty good looking, but they definitely need a solid performance here tonight in order to make it out of the doldrums. And after just picking up Dupe, they certainly have a craving to do so. Dojo as well, 13th themselves, looking to just cross the T and dot the I with this new roster that has just been picking up dub after dub lately. Is this the moment, Mello? Is this the time that the Dojo finally has it all figured out?
It is exciting to see It's Timmy finally make their way to a Challenger Circuit final, supported by Designful, who definitely is the type of player that you don't want to be taking a 1v1 against. Very much a veteran of the game, very much a fragger that will take down your entire team if given just an inch too much. They're holding up on this ultimate height here, where they will continue to pressure, continue to try and get those Evos up, make sure they're as kitted as they can be before those crazy endgame fights start. But they're going to be pretty dang comfortable. They've got a charge rifle up there with sights, so I mean, what more could you ask for when the zone is pulling your way? A nice height there to defend. But as you said, the question really is this the CC where they figured everything out? We'll certainly have to see, because many other teams have really started to figure out the field. Most Hated, as you said, a little bit underrated, under the radar console team coming over to the Challenger Circuit, finally on that PC and making big moves while they do it.
Yeah, but they are not the only team that has absolutely guaranteed themselves that spot. There has been, like I said, a guaranteed upper echelon. And Most Hated, while they sort of stand alone with Donut Shop to an extent, No Name, Crypt, MSW, who is notably not here tonight, and Aporia, who is also notably not here tonight, although they won a last CC, and TS Mex, all have more than enough points to carry through. They have such a defined lead over the rest of CC. It's actually pretty incredible considering how much game all of these teams have had to play, but consistency reigns through in a select few, and I guess now you have an early visage into those teams to watch now and going into the LCQ. But a lot of teams still to take those spots, still to join that crowd in this event to define that, at least partially, Split 2 playoffs. A lot of these other teams, again, in the middle of the pack, are going to have their eyes glued when we head back to the international land stage. But of course, they have to get through this mental hurdle after mental hurdle. But once again, everyone handling it cool as a cucumber. We still stand at 18 teams as this circle converges, and we no longer have anybody inside this edge. Everybody's starting to duck and cover, find a home, because that is where they'll have to stay for some time.
And I love that you bring up the Crypt, because they're another team that has flown under a lot of people's radar, but they're one of the few teams that can claim they've showed up to every single Challenger Circuit final, which is a massive feat in it of itself. Another team that also might just have needed a little bit more time to, as you said, figure it out. Could this be their opportunity to break into that top 10 and maybe even to a top 5 or a top 3 to rack up those points and maybe rack up a little bit more eyes that I think are very much deserved for the consistency of the performances that they've put up, at least on their way to qualifying for this finals. Much more to be proven, I believe, in these finals lobbies. And in terms of finals lobbies, the amount of high caliber player, the amount of talent here, probably up there with the most challenging lobbies that I think we've gotten to see here. And I think the fact that we have so many squads still up might be a testament to that, though. As we mentioned previously, Dudes Night Out has not quite started hunting yet.
Do you think that's what they're going to do, though? Do you think we'll see just a griefing game from one of these ape teams? I mean, I feel like that's been on some people's minds, and yeah, Dudes Night Out's gonna basically answer my question for me now. They'll hop onto the tracks and start absolutely burning. Redeem falls in the process on the other side of the kill feed, but in the meantime, it is Dudes Night Out who is absolutely dominating. Koi and Dupe are still up and running, and they only have one shield left to melt, taking the high ground along with it, as well as safety for Lou. Easy entryway, now it just comes to the finisher for them.
And Duplix on that signature caustic, stabilizing the heck out of this fight. Still hunting for that last kill, I believe. I think Koiful hears it, but as we saw, the execution, the attacking power of the squad is there. They might not have stabilized quite enough, as there is already a third party flying in, and that's going to be 2 members down, 1 completely out. Lu, fully thirsted Duplex answering back, but the damage isn't there. The reset was not crisp enough, and Vizenko has come through, taking out easily the scariest team in the lobby right now.
What an insane clutch. I think that was Crow's Joe. I want to say that was Crow's Joe who made that clutch. Oi Senpai was the first to fall, but taking that low ground pretty quickly, and then the bamboozle from them is absolutely gorgeous. Knowing they can get away with that as well, knowing they can take their time with their fight because they're so out on the extremities of this circle, they know they're allowed to make noise, and they can basically still go wherever they want now because of that Horizon and Bangalore mobility. That was just a beautifully retaken fight, and yeah, like you said, one of the top prospects already down in game number 1. That sets a massive precedent for how this is going to go. Dojo, another team that once again trying to brandish that marquee. Timmy is going to find an opening pick, but it is absolute chaos from the upstairs. I don't think Dojo should be settling on finding squad wipes. It looks like they might just be hunting for kills while the rest of the rats wait it out under the deep waters here in Thermal.
Yes, Max, trying to find a little bit of space, a little bit of safety to reset. They've done so, but this spot starts to get increasingly more difficult to play. You still have teams that might be on your south looking over on that height. You, of course, have all of the squads to the east that have high ground, and that god height with the tower in the middle, where we see that squad led by its Timmy continually pressuring this team here. So they're stabilized for now, but they're going to have to be very proactive to ensure that they stay alive and make it to this end game. Most hated, not in quite as stable as of a position. AWP answering back, but I think that's going to be an ARG stick. Not quite. And look at the damage coming out. The trading is huge, and Laser might be able to save this one, but will start the retreat instead.
And, yeah, again, beautifully taken. I think that's Aim No Brain that they were facing off against, if I'm not mistaken. But it looks like everyone will kind of take a step back. Yeah, Most Hated is going to try to do a little bit of a mild, soft retreat here. But Awope is going to fall. And so the fight may just get reset here. Laser looks like he's trying to just hold it down as the Crypt wades by. But in the meantime, Retired, a team rotating from the other end here, they actually kind of have a tough go at it. They are the only team outside on the yard still, and they do spot Aim No Brain on the other end of this track. They don't know what lies beyond the other ravine, though, so maybe unsure of what route to take, and they don't have a Valk to do it. They do have that evac tower, though, so they'll be able to refine, despite, preferably on that western side, I would say. Despite how occupied Thermal's getting to be, that's probably the way to go.
They absolutely have to think about looking for a third party here, because Raw walking into this next zone is going to be much easier said than done. They have the catwall there to try and execute that as well, blocking off maybe the line of sight over from the teams on the east. And they're actually going to utilize the evac tower, so no Valk needed.
Yeah.
Huge change here in this meta, so they're going to fly in. But are they going to find a safe spot to play? They're going to fly over towards the underside of this donut building, likely putting up a wall to stabilize. But that is 1, 2, 3 pieces of... Oh my god, three grenades just three-piece that team straight back to the lobby screen. Retired is eliminated off that rotate.
And who else but Team Yer to do it in the most creative way possible? Normally, you look up when people are coming in from those evac towers. What did Yer do? They looked down at where they were landing and just launched every ordnance they had, and it worked to a T. It worked to more perfection than I think I've ever seen a Valk interception go. And now they'll breach that space themselves, take that low ground, a dominant position with a lot of great other teams gatekeeping them themselves. But I doubt anybody wants to approach them right now, especially after that display.
You gotta wonder what happened to the bubble there. What happened to the catwall? Not timely enough, unfortunately. So all of that ordnance, thanks for finding the word for me there. A little too late for me, but yeah, all that ordnance that came through
I forget it so often too.
Absolutely brutal. So a team will fall. Not the safest place to play either way. I think maybe looking for that third-party opportunity would have been a slightly safer play for them, but you live and you learn, or in this case, I guess, you die and you learn, but you learn either way, I hope. Ring 5, about a minute from closing. Kraber in the hands of Blinkser for a Beamers. very much a dangerous position, but this is not in the next zone, so they are going to have to make a move, much like Team Revenge is making a move now. No Name down to 1 with Chicas.
Wow, yeah, Revenge is just going to burn their way through this if they can. And I don't know if No Name is going to be able to get out of the way fast enough, which is might be what they have to do. Beamers are still waiting inside their building, by the way. So I don't know if they've missed that window to rotate or... No, they're going to go for it now. It looks like they'll step outside at the very least and take the edge of this circle. They're in a slightly safer position. Don't have to move as much, but they still do have to get inside this circle and reconsider, and Team Revenge knows it. They will start to scope out this other building and make sure that they are the only team coming in from this northwest, and they'll start committing resources to it. Donut Shop is also going to start taking a look around. They know that they are not the only ones here. They know they are occupied, and they know they can win just about any fight they want to, but it's up against Ur, one of the black sheeps, the wild cards in this entire event, and after just 1 or 2, the last of which they used only random picks of Legends for, they have a chance to make it to LCQ as well. One of the best out of all the teams in NA, and they will begin their ascent now with the help of that Dark Veil, rotating around the entirety of this dead space to get into the circle safely as we reach our top 10.
Do not be fooled by the composition you're seeing on your screen. They are no longer going full random with their picks. This is a composition they've been working in scrims. They've utilized it now to sneak into a corner of this next zone, and they continue to deal damage to the squads in front of them. That's going to be J-Trips going down. We're going to see Ashley Marie taking out one of their members in a trade, but TS Mex is eliminated in the process. Donut Shop, your previous Challenger Circuit Finals winners, eliminated from the lobby as well. And the last thing that remains is you're on that side of the ring. Absolutely beautiful.
And they have enough space to get out of there. They only have 2 members, but that is more than enough to carry on to get some more placement points. Let's see how many more they can find. Dojo up to their heads in doo-doo. They are down at 6. Chaos are the ones to beat them in this bunker. Still working like a charm, subbing out that G for the Valk, or for just a little more mobility as a unit, not needing those evac towers. And now they also stand alone, this time on the southern end of that circle. Everyone's sort of finding their own space, but a couple solid potential dominant figures have stepped out. Beamers, who have been hibernating all game, have finally tried to take this center circle, and Team Ur will attempt to join them in this main building along the outskirts. Everybody else waits for the action to commence, and there is a little bit of action. A double Kraber shot to get the first down of the fight, but now reacted to. It may just not matter. So much damage already coming in, but Crewbuckle strikes back. And it's down to just 1 member for Ur. You cannot fully rely on that, and so we have another rat entering the top 5.
Oh, massive payoff there for AIM No Brain. They bided their time waiting for a team to overcommit to something. Unfortunately, Ur is that team to overcommit, so even though they go 3 for 3 on the Kraber shots, they're going to lose another member here before this final zone starts to close. Speaking of, we are here, Tenric, the last moments of the first game of our Challenger Circuit Final are here. Let's see which teams will fall and which teams will rise to the occasion. Massive Titans have already been taken out. Who takes the win?
It's No Name next to fall, and now comes the rest of the rotations in Tempest and Cape trying to follow in from that southern side, and they aren't having too much luck as Relay will fall. Yours last rat is gone, so it's down to our top 3, and Beamers still stand tall. They've been getting fed on a lot, though, taking this low ground, and they haven't really been able to strike back all too much, but they have started to find some kills, and now they'll start to find that action, reskinning up as they'll throw this Dark Veil down and take just a little more time, hoping that the rest of the teams duke it out, but Blinkster is going to get fallen on. Has to shield swap again, and Beamers maintain this low ground, still somehow not getting super contested. Blinkster the first to fall, though, and now they have to make their way up. They will not find much luck whatsoever, and the patience from these other top 2 teams comes through. KSR's rat gone, and Beamers get away with said hibernation just a little bit longer with the help of this Dark Veil. It's just Crewbuckle left, though, in this one, and I don't know if they'll be able to hold it down here. Beamers might just have it. AIM No Brain may just not be able to fully sustain it. Shield dancing in this final circle. A lot of dancing available, but Beamers hold it down just long enough. And that is a very impressive, very stoic game for one of the newcomers to CC.
2 teams that have maybe been completely absent from all of the conversations we kicked things off with today. Aim No Brain versus Beamers for the win here. And what a way to take out some of the most high caliber, high octane teams, most talented, experienced players in the game. If you didn't put enough respect on these teams' names, that first game certainly is putting them on the map for me. My notebook is just all Beamers right now. Huge clutch there, bringing it back from the brink of defeat. So much more can be said about that end game, but I just am so glad to see that it was outplay after outplay till the end, excuse me.
Yeah, and with that, Beamers already getting a huge start to this event. That is really massive for them. They are just skirting outside the top 10 of CC rankings right now, so getting an early win here is huge for their point total going forward, huge for their point total going into LCQ contention. They may have already built enough of a cushion, but we cannot speculate too long. Let's do some more reflecting with Dan and two of our favorite other casters. Take it away, guys.
Woo, what a way to kick off, of course, Challengers Cup number 4. I mean, listen, we had Paps with some schmoves early on. We're seeing that Retired is getting deleted by, I gotta say the name correctly, and then obviously Beamers winning that 1v1. What an insane game. Of course, we got two more legends themselves here with me. It's Dia and it's Tom. Dia, welcome on in, number 1. 2, talk to me about that game, because we saw some pretty insane stuff coming out of the boys.
We did, and what I really liked about the game, besides the obviously very exciting final circle, was the way that teams were playing around Thermal in general. I think that we had a lot of really good positions being taken up, and even KSR with the Rampart had a nice spot. And as we take a look back at the highlights that made this game, what stood out to me, Tom, was smart abilities. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we've just seen one of the biggest surprises was not everybody was using their abilities smart. Dudes Night Out were out, way early. I was very surprised. They're one of the favorites. I called them on Twitter that I think they're probably going to be our winners today, but they're not making a good start. It was a very, they'll be very surprised, but that might be just a little bit of a wake-up call for them. Maybe their strong performance yesterday, they're a little bit complacent. They weren't quite, sure what to expect from the level of a finals lobby and challenger circuit. So we'll see how they bounce back in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw a team like Dojo, right, get kind of obliterated, it seemed like, from KSR as well. I know Dojo kind of a fan favorite coming into this, and really trying to make a run here in the last challenger circuit that we have going. So, I mean, map number 1, it was, kind of crazy, obviously, that we had going on with all of the teams, and you're seeing in some of these highlights just some of the plays that were going on. I mean, as we get ready to head into map number 2, right, I'm kind of curious your thoughts, because I think we're seeing a lot of teams, maybe map number 1, they either kind of, they're shaking off the rust, or they are locking it in. And well, Beamer seems to be one of those teams that is really locking it in, putting up 22 points to be at top of the leaderboard.
This is a great start for them. As long as you're hitting above 20, you're having what I'll call a good to great game. 22 is going to land you, I think, it's a solid good section of that. And the important part of this is, of course, that Beamers keep it up. That's the natural conclusion of our 6-game format. However, what's the big question for me is looking at those teams that we had expected to jump out a little bit further, that do love to frag out, like Dojo, like Dudes Night Out, because they're the X factors that everybody in the lobby is playing around. I'd equate Beamers to a lot of very talented teams that have shown up multiple times in the finals. They've got clearly mechanics to tango. Can they deal with these two rosters when they're on form?
Yeah, and Tom, we didn't get a chance to talk about a lot of the squads at the top of the show, right? We kind of went through them because we got into the game so fast, but obviously you're well-versed in a lot of these teams. Talk to me through who maybe are some of the squads here that, if people aren't as familiar, why they're at the top of the leaderboard, or why, if there's somebody down at the bottom of the leaderboard, why you're a little surprised.
Yeah, I mean, look, touching past the obvious of the couple of big names that we've mentioned, I think a team that I'm keeping an eye on today is Team Yer. I think that we've seen their names. I think that gives us an insight into their attitude for the day's games. Look at what they did last time, right? They literally randomized their legends the entire time, made finals, and didn't come last. They pretty much qualified for LCQ, as their name suggests. And I think that, as we saw in that last game, that presents an interesting situation because they're playing with freedom. They're just playing for fun, But that makes them dangerous because they're all talented players and they're not thinking, oh my God, now this team is above us and we might not have enough points to make LCQ. They're not stressed. They're relaxed. They're playing their game. They don't really care what's going to happen. I know them all. I know they're going to want to win. But, if they int something and have a bad game, they're just going to say, lol and go next. So, it makes it very, very dangerous for other teams because they're unpredictable.
I got to imagine it's kind of like an interview, right? It's always the ones that you go in and you're not really thinking about. You're like, you know what? I'm probably not getting this job anyway. That you just like walk out of and crush. So maybe that's your today. Sorry, how do I say it, Dendro?
You say it. Yer. I was gonna yell at Tom for not saying it correctly, but it's okay. I'll use my loudmouth.
2:30 in the morning. 2:30 in the morning.
I need you to have some passion here, Tom. Okay, this is the last Challenger Circuit we have. And I need some passion, but that's okay. I totally agree with both of you, right? I mean, we usually see this more in like game number 6, where it's like last game of the day, and teams are just doing literally whatever they want to try and survive, try and scrounge up any amount of KP. But when you have a squad that's doing that from map number 1, it gets a little bit dangerous, right? You have your landing locations, you have your loot pads, your timings that you're kind of trying to hit. And if another team throws that off, if you're not kind of a well-versed team who knows how to kind of pivot and has different game plans depending on where the circle draws and stuff, you could be in some really sticky situations. So we got a couple wild cards going on here in the map, and I like it because I think it's going to create a really dynamic map set for us, right? We've already had one game, obviously, here on World's Edge, and we are kind of looking to move through 2 more. We're kind of waiting on just, obviously, this lobby to get up and running. But let's talk a little bit macro, right? Because I think what we've seen, teams have, started to figure out a little bit how to play some of these maps a little bit more. I know I was talking with Z Davis from Team Redeem a little bit earlier, and he was kind of saying, hey, we finally figured out our macro, right? Challenger Circuit hasn't always been, easy for us. We haven't always performed to our best of our abilities, but we've sort of figured out kind of the overall total game plan. Dia, I'm really curious, right? If you are maybe one of these squads that didn't perform well in game number 1, what sort of adjustments are you making into game number 2 to try and get some of those points? Because it's all about consistency at the end of the day.
Yeah, a big part of your adaptation between games, and I'd even throw this towards Redeem as well, is figuring out what your timing out of your POI means relative to other squads that are leaving theirs. You may have an idea of how you want to play the game and what time you want to rotate, but if you're trying to rotate out a Lava Fisher at the same time that people are trying to rotate at a Countdown, you guys are going to kill each other. One who's going down, and a big part of this, I think, actually talking specifically about Redeem, was seeing how their early contest against Edition ended up impacting them in the later game, where they weren't able to make it as far. So whether you be Redeem, whether you be any other team that perhaps didn't make it as far as you'd like to, absolutely analyze the timing of your rotations.
Yeah, I think that's super, super crucial. And something I know Tom probably has a lot of ideas and thoughts on, being a competitor himself, which, guess what? You guys have all the time in the world to talk about it. We have map number 2 ready to go. Beamers, they looked good in map number 1, but will another team come out on top here in game number 2? Who knows? Boys, take it away.
Only one way to find out, Tom? We're jumping on to World's Edge, seeing what happens.
We're straight into Lava Fisher for another contest. You talk about timings. If there's one way that your timings are going to get messed up, it's contesting at a zone POI when everybody knows that you're contesting because it happened in the last game. But it looks like, Z Davis putting in some work with the longbow.
Might actually be able to take him down, but with just a longbow and a Mozambique and no mobility on the Catalyst, things are looking a little bit tough right now because you're taking what looks like a 1 versus 1 with a possible res coming up. Davis actually is going to try and lock the door, pick up his fallen comrade. Can he do it in time? It's going to be time for Mozambique Gaming, just a 15. 5 more shots. That one goes wide, and there's going to be no damage coming out of Catalyst. Instead, the longbow comes out at close range, and Edition do go down, but barely.
Wow, I mean, Z Davis still is that guy. Wow, it's been a journey for him to get to finals, and he's finally showing up. And that was pretty quick, actually. Those teams, they really engaged with each other this time, and there's still a minute just under till the zone starts to move. They've got both of their players still to be revived, no respawns needed. So they're going to really try and loot quickly and play their game. And they do have a very strong POI for that. They have the balloon, they have other balloons that they can fly to redeploy to get around the map very quickly. Of course, we can see they have console here. Lava Fisher has one of the best console spawn rates, so they're now going to try and play their game out, get into zone, and get some points on the board.
And once they have that console, they're going to know that, really, their job is already done. If you're playing out a Lava Fissure and you want to get into Ring, well, I got good news for you, because nobody is going to get to this next zone faster than you. So, as they rotate up towards the north, we'll see what position they end up playing, because Redeem are going to be a little bit slower to this than they would normally be, but they're spoiled for choice in terms of where along the outside of Trials they play, because they really no longer have access to the inside.
Yeah, and we can see that, a couple of other teams that might have considered third-partying the fight, well, obviously, like, for example, the Cryptic Countdown, third-partying Lava Fissure from Countdown is really, really easy. You can literally pinch a team, without having to really do anything or take any risks, but they're already set up in Trials, and it looks like they are moving, but they'll be very pleased, I think, that they got that contest over so quickly, because as you can see, Donut Shop already moving up on them, and that is the risk. If that takes a long time and you have the zone, teams aren't even going to be third-partying you on purpose. They're just going to be, rolling up. You're in their way, and if they can grab a few kills on the way to getting a really strong spot in zone, no team is going to pass that up, and to be honest with you, there isn't even a way to rotate around if you want to get to that side of Trial. So Z Davis will be really chuffed that he managed to get that fight cleaned up nice and quickly, and they'll be hoping now that they can still get one of those good spots, because like you said, there are options available.
And just remind me, Tom, chuffed, that's a good thing.
Yes. That's a British term for absolutely positively spiffing.
This is almost one of those situations where you define the word by using the word, but it's not. It's just more confusing than that. For Fun Gamers, however, are rotating over towards the northern side. For Fun Gamers, actually a team that stood out to me for really the reason that I've actually cast with Mango before. I think we did Celestial Cup together, so I saw him playing today and was like, oh, okay. Caster Gaming? Let's find out. So, if this goes well for Mango, you'll see me in the next split of ALGS trying to compete my way through the Challenger Circuit. And if it doesn't, well, I'll stay here.
I'll be rooting for you if you ever compete. I would love to see that. As we see more and more teams now flying in. That sounded really sarcastic. I would just love to see you take it on. You've got so much experience from all your casting.
That's the word,
and
right?
I think that, I think that is a point though, right? It's having all that experience, and that's where players like Z Davis, really do shine, because he's been in the Pro League. He's, worked with teams, he's analyzed, he's, been around the game for a very, very long time. And that can really help you out, because sometimes just having that bit of knowledge, knowing, you can play this spot, knowing that, putting a couple of rampart walls on top of a tower will make you safe enough to, to reset. When we play at such a high level, those small things can make absolutely huge, huge differences.
And it's one of the things that separates players as well. That, like, the amount of time that you play the game, especially at a competitive level. You're talking about Z Davis, right? He's just been around the block for a very long time. And game sense matters in any game. If you're playing Apex Legends and you know somebody's going to be around the corner, man, it's big. But competitive game sense is a very different beast, especially if you're playing the IGL position and have to be the one calling what teams are rotating around you. You'll see this at the professional level a lot, but many IGLs have this sort of second instinct for what actual teams are coming up behind them. Not just that there is a team, like, say, Donut Shop rotating up through Lava Fissure, but that it's actually Donut Shop. They'll guess it right most of the time.
And that is something that I think goes unsaid about the Challenger Circuit, is it's so much more difficult, because if you're a Pro League team, you're playing against the same 30 teams all season. You really start to build that knowledge of, what teams like to do what, where they rotate, what spots they like to play in certain zones. But because in the Challenger Circuit you're playing against hundreds of teams, and, have we ever had a finals lobby that's even got, 15 of the same 20 teams every week? Yeah. I don't think we have. So you're constantly having to adapt on the fly, you have to do research, one night, as we see FSQ here, losing a player and potentially having to back away from that engagement. So,
perfect example.
Yeah, exactly. And, how do you know which teams are going to play trials? Which team likes to take the tower? What comps are you on? Who's following you up? Is there going to be a contest at, Lava Fissure or not? Did teams know that in advance of the games? Because that jams up your rotate. So I think that's something that goes unsaid, is that experience is even more, that sort of raw experience, that being able to, adapt on the fly, I think is even more important at this level than it is at Pro League level.
Got a little bit of a fight breaking out in Harvester as the Dojo end up finding themselves, actually put up against Ur, who desperately need to heal, by the way. Don't want to get knocked in zone at this point into the game, and he won't. Syringe for the win. It's going to be enough to stabilize inside of Harvester, and you do have plenty of time to hang out here, especially because there's a crafter in this POI, and you should be able to scout out when they're actually safe to go forward, because they've got a crypto. What is it with this crypto as well? Have we seen increasingly more crypto being picked up by teams at the pro level? We're seeing it pop up in Challenger Circuit, but a crypto Bangalore squad. What's this meant to do, Tom?
I think that it's, having that scan in the smoke, being able to fly. I've seen crypto players who they fit perfectly into the meme of controller players, right? I have to be on a leash, because I've seen crypto players sit in their drone, fly around in the drone while their two controller players just go and kill things that the drone points at. So that's one way to do it. But also crypto, I think, is a very flexible legend, and he allows you good resets. You can get banners at a distance, which is good if you're going to take a lot of fights. He can get you that information. He can also scan those map room beacons, or those respawn beacons, survey beacons, to scan where everybody is on the map. So that is a lot of information that he gives you, but also the EMP is just incredibly strong as a counter push. With Bangalore and crypto as a combination, you can hold your own for a very, very long time, whether you're in a field or in a building, and he lets you play flexibly like that, because you always have something you can use to slow a team down.
Flexibility super valuable as well. I mean, we can talk to death about this, but it's why you see legends like Seer and Catalyst featured. The ability for these cooldowns, their ultimates specifically, to be both defensive and offensive means so much. And we did get a quick glimpse at a reset in Skyhook. We got a lot of teams rotating in and starting to fight each other, so we're going to jump in with Most Hated and see what they do on their way in towards the north side of this ring. It's going to start off with Wope finding the first knock onto Bunk, and with a grenade to cover the entrance. It is going to be a pause on Most Hated for a moment until suddenly the team on the inside burns live, and as it turns out, Laser almost does as well. Most Hated, clean house, and Aim No Brain go down.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most appropriate time ever to use the phrase "let him cook," because those guys just got absolutely roasted in that building. Last time I saw that much fire, it was when Dia started rapping between games.
Oh no.
So yeah.
That was
so I think that was a really, really clean wipe, and to do that without taking any players down in this zone, because this could have been a server fight. Lots of teams want to make their way around to this side of Trials. A lot of teams that maybe have slightly guessed the zone wrong, or are just trying to take a fight on the way in. For example, Dudes Night Out, who, you can see them literally licking their lips as they stare from this head glitch at this team, but there's, competitive Apex in a nutshell, where you're getting help from other teams. They're going to be poked at by all these other teams, so they're trying to now weigh up if they can make this push. And with that caustic, if they get that caustical in the top floor of that building, just as they do, then the other team's going to have to exit very, very sharpish.
Dude's Night Out do drop one, but you got Koifel on your team, so Wope hits the floor just as quickly. 2 versus 2 with Duplex supporting from afar, has already tossed in the caustic ult, as you mentioned, and Wope going to be full thirsted, giving Koifel the opportunity to shield swap, res his partner, whatever it may be. Lou's still on the ground. No Digi sight just yet, but with Duplex closing the gap, you've now got Caustic as a defensive option available. Dupe instead is going to have to play forward, not being able to put out a gas trap just yet. Finally puts one down and is going to try and go for the res onto Lou, but it looks like it's being shot through the door and has to play things very carefully. Just a little bit of gas to cover, and Dupe pops the shield battery with seconds left. Lou needs to be picked back up. This is now getting extremely risky. You threatened the server fight earlier, Tom, and Dude's Night Out clean up Most Hated just in time.
Yeah, and they do have that caustic, being able to put those barrels down to really delay that fight. And of course, great use of the caustical, and hat tip to Dupe for the timing as well. Appreciate you. But to be able to delay that, and teams do see caustic as a no-go. They will see, well, that is a caustic team. If we push out, they can stall us for days and days and days. And when they already have control of the building, if you are starting that server fight, the only way you survive that is being at the center of it. If you're one of the teams trying to push and you're just getting delayed and delayed and delayed by...
There's a reason we talk about it, is the eye of the storm. Now, Lou and Koifel are going to be able to jump out of this building and actually go hunting for a moment. So See what they can do up against Viz and the squad. Dudes Night actually dropping Koiful as we just jump away from them for a second. That's going to be nigh on unrecoverable since we got a Sheila covering the escape of Lou, but Duplex is going to go for it because they're calling down the Moby, so you better hope that they're able to grab that banner in the next little while, because otherwise this mobile respawn is going to do a whole lot of nothing. Find out how well it gets covered as Lou to be sent out on a mission on this Bangalore super zoomer, a lot faster than Caustic anyway, and going to be able to grab the banner and hopefully get back to this mobile respawn beacon. It looks like Mission Impossible was complete. And when Tom gets back, he's going to be ecstatic about a journey like that. Oh my god. Going down as well. This is something that Dudes Night Out are doing exceptionally by playing the northern side. We saw them go up against most hated moments before, and it was by pressuring through the north side of this ring. A big part of the power in this spot comes from the fact that other teams simply aren't able to rotate behind you. If you are the first one to be furthest north, you have so much control over the rest of the map because the zone is at your back, or, as last ring, the edge of the map is at your back. So Pain and Suffering, without that advantage, are going to be sent right back into market. Bide their time in Skyhook. 30 seconds left until the ring closes. It is a rather short amount of time, but also not a zone that you have to be too concerned about, especially when you've still got things like the Catalyst Wall and the Bangalore smokes to cover you on the way in. Dropping the Ultic cells does mean something big, though. They're going to need what is likely a Catalyst Wall to make their landing safe. Maybe even the Seer ult as evac tower is going to go up. This Valkylis meta is going to continue. Let's find out where Pain and Suffering end up on their landing. 15 squads left. They've accumulated 1 placement point. Evac tower going to survive for now. And I believe I'm welcoming in a friend.
You 100% are. Unfortunately, our man Tom having some internet issues over there across the pond, and we hate to see that. So guess what? You got another caster here. I'm not nearly as good as Tom, but I'm happy to be in here and happy to bring him in for a little bit. And actually, guess what? I don't even have to do anything because Tom's here.
I was going to say, better hope you can rap as well as Tom. And Tom, you're joining us just in time to see Pain and Suffering get eliminated. Dudes Night Out, after dropping Koiful in an engagement, managed to get the mobile res back and have survived the oncoming fight.
Yeah, speaking of getting third-partied, I got third-partied there by my internet provider while I was mid-speech as well. I kept talking, didn't realize. So I will try to remember what I said, but not surprised to see that DNO and Koiful are still alive, and not surprised to see that the Dojo are still alive as well, 2 of our strongest teams, both in decent spots, but the Dojo have got a real route to zone, and it's going to require a lot of fighting.
At this point, playing ever further off of the low ground, it's clear that this way lies war. Beamers are going to go down, 11 squads left, but Dojo are taking the path that honestly is going to move them through teams that rotated late, teams that are unprepared for a squad to rotate out of zone and into them, and it works exactly like that. They catch a team off guard instantly, force a defensive Catalyst Wall, and now control the only path forward, the only route to the north that leads you to the promised land of the zone.
Yeah, and sometimes this is the best position to be in as a strong fighting team. You know, this team has mechanics, it has experience, you know, it has the passion, their communication. And they have only one option. There is no room for hesitation. There's no room for, you know, maybe a lack of chemistry, counter-calling, or, you know, jumbling up your game plan. There is one game plan. Kill. In the following direction, right? You just follow that orange line on your map, and you kill everything in your way. And that suits this team down to a T, as you can see, as they're going to, you know, work their way in. And then if they beat a couple of these teams to zone, you just stand, you turn around, and you pick up a load of KP on everybody running in behind you.
DNO doing the same. Kill in this direction seems to be the imperative from both sides of the map. FSQ are going to become victims of this unfortunate situation. And Dudes Night Out find themselves face to face with what I believe is just 1 or 2 more members. This is the difficult part, though, for Dojo. Keeping squads inside of Trials as other teams try and rotate up towards the north. They've put themselves in a spot where it's relatively likely that this gets third party. The zone's closing in, and Dojo are looking tasty.
Yeah, you can see, you know, they have a huge armor advantage over the Crypt that were one of our fastest rotators. You know, the 2 blues and a gold compared to triple red. and they are on the back foot now. You know, Dojo swinging in, really aggressive on them, and the zone is also going to be playing an impact as well.
Here comes everybody. Even Donut Shop, our 2 times winners of Challenger Circuit, going to be sat in a bubble on the outside of zone, and that spells the end. We got a bunch of boxes piling up in the red, and the Crypt, as well as the Dojo, will join them. No Name sat on the inside of Trials in a, I gotta be honest, rather doomed position, Tom. We got 4 squads left, and No Name are just hoping they get another placement point.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the complete polar opposite to the last game. Thermal, you know, there was somebody in literally every, you know, square meter of ground. Whereas here, everybody's just kind of, you know, got stuck on the south side of zone. Everybody's, I mean, look how many boxes there are there. It looks like a Home Depot or something. So, you know, you're already struggling now to see a route to 3rd place for No Name. I'm going to be honest with you. They've been CS-scanned. Teams know they're in there. Their only hope is that these 2 teams fight so much that one of them dies before they have to leave.
Looking like an increasingly likely possibility. Dudes Night Out do have just 1 player left. Fortunately for them, it's the best possible combination of luck. Dudes Night Out have a Caustic on height in the sniper tower and in the next zone. Duplex has won the lottery of zones and compositions today.
I mean, this is just real dedication to the legend. You know, you've got your Caustic Gas ability, you've got 2 green energy weapons, and you're just sat behind your barrels on high. I mean, he even has somebody else's low brought there. He has somebody else's rampart shields. He is absolutely set up. But there is a Kraber in play, and it would only take a little tap to the face, and Duplex, his night out would be over. But he's going to survive just for a little bit longer.
He heard it. He's got to know if he didn't before. With Loba on the low ground, however, not a whole lot of access onto height.
Yeah,
TSX
No Name out in 4th.
are going to start moving up. Let's see what this nade can do. As No Name, unfortunately, go down, although I will say, quite naturally. TSMX holding around the outside are going to become the focal point of Dudes Night Out on the high ground, as well as the squad below. Things looking increasingly tight for them as KSR start to pressure. Caustic Gas is a big card to be thrown in there, though, and Relay's got nowhere to go. Tanking the Caustic Gas is going to go down behind Rampart walls. TSMX know that this has gone down. They know they have a numbers advantage, but can they actually move up to finish KSR without going down? Dudes Night Out, go out. It's a 2 versus 3 in the favor of TSMX, and you have to imagine, Tom, that it's a game they're winning.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're just... Although, actually...
Okay.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe just turning that back around. Oh, never mind. M&K coming in clutch. How many times do you get to say that in the Challenger Circuit? That's probably the first time in about 6 months. Somebody on M&K did something cool and they won the game. Let's go. Woo.
No, that was good. That was very, like, that was as close as it could have gotten for KSR after the Caustic Gas. It's very difficult to navigate a situation like that because Dudes Night Out, they had nothing to lose. Right.
Yeah, I mean... completely valiant attempt by Dupe there because he knew he wasn't in on the tower for much longer, and he had to just try and force that team out. He had to force them into the open, he had to encourage the other 2 teams to fight and then hopefully get second. But I think they kind of thought, well, you know, you're trying to grief us, well, we're just going to stare at you and grab that kill. And at least by putting that team into survival mode, maybe he actually caused his own downfall there because they felt the need to get that extra point and get that second place locked in the bag.
Yeah, and I will say, very impressive game from all 3 of our squads, or should I say 4, that ended up surviving until that ring closed, because while No Name did go out early, it was an unfortunate situation for them where they had a whole lot of loot on the inside of Trials. As we look forward, however, standings have absolutely been mixed up. I didn't see no beamers in that end game zone, and that's my favorite thing about Challenger Circuit, Tom, is how much it changes every time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, just how this has shaken up over that last game and, you know, just how close it is at the top of the leaderboard because it was already looking pretty close from like 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Well, to take us through that, you guys already know that we've got some amazing, cheerful talent on the other side. So, Dandrew, who came in to save us partway through, as well as Mellowcrit and Tenrek, are waiting for you on the analyst desk, and I'm not going to make you wait any longer.
Wow, so nice of you, Dia, to let the cheerful talent be able to come back in and talk. No, a little cheerful, of course, after being able to watch that map number 2, because I think it was just like really awkward, but I think we got to see a couple of the squads kind of flex their knowledge and their ability to kind of stay alive and be able to play. Hey, you shout out to TS Mex, though, for being able to win that 1v1 there right at the very end and be able to clutch it on up. But hey, we have two people here who know way more about Apex Legends than I do, and I'm really curious to see what they have to say about it. So, Mello, when we kind of take a look at that map overall, what jumped out to you from some of those squads? Because it got a little awkward.
Yeah, I mean, it was astoundingly difficult to navigate. You have to give props to the way Dudes Night Out navigated. I mean, they were rotating all the way from the eastern side of the map, brought it over relatively early, which for an edge team, recognizing when they had to be there early and take a fight early enough. And actually, I think we're seeing it here, their fight against Most Hated. It was so critical that they won this and that they continued to win as they crawled forward, because they were basically the last team that was able to stand on that northern edge of zone. There was absolutely no axis left by the time we got around to that 4th, 5th ring situation. So for them to take those fights, which of course would dupe on that squad with Lou, on that squad with Koiful, just absolute fragger talent, it wasn't at all surprising to see them winning all of the fights that they needed to win.
Yeah, that was a team that we kind of wanted to highlight a little bit more, right, Tenric? Obviously, this squad is like insanely talented, right? Kind of coming in from a little bit of mishmash of some ex-pro leaguers coming together to fight it on out. But talk to me a little bit more about them, because obviously coming into Challenger Circuit, they are finding success, but it's not obviously coming super easy to them.
Right, yeah, no, Dudes Night Out is still a team that has to work hard to get here, and I mean, we've seen every team that has had, pros fall from that PL come down here and try their hand at things and, not be able to shake it out the first time. This was a good start, though, and I think it shows that level of PL players that we tend to see, how good some of these players' macros are, because sometimes you just gotta have a macro off during a CC, and I think this game was a great litmus for that. It led to a very big shift in not just how teams function, but what teams focus on in order to become better than their opponents. Specifically, fighting flow. Normally in World's Edge, even, you'll see a lot of even like 3P notches being taken, people sort of poking their head out of the sand a lot more often.
Sure.
But here, it's more like people bringing their head underwater after taking a deep breath and seeing how long they can hold it down there before having to finish the fight, get back up above the surface, and then survive just a little bit longer. It was TS Mex who did that the most, grabbing 24 total points, but that top pack is looking really solid, Mello. Dudes Night Out grabbing 9 KP for that 16. No Name even cracking double digits, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a battle of the minds, but when it comes to some of the rings, I mean, Dandre, you were watching too, it gets absolutely chaotic. The survivability just tanks at some point, and you gotta wonder if it comes down to luck of the draw, whether you're the one getting 3P'd or doing the 3P'ing at the end of the day.
I mean, that's really kind of what it all comes down to, right? In competitive Apex, are you the one third-partying, or are you getting third-partied on? And we saw that definitely play out. A pretty substantial drop-off after placement number 4, but we have our leaderboard ready. Let's take a look at it and see how did those games impact the overall board after map number 2. Well, TS Mex, they're making their way up. You can see some solid movement, and they now are the kings of the lobby. 32 points total, but not too far behind them. It's going to be KSR, who's been doing really well in these first 2 maps, and then Beamers holding on to 3rd after a very impressive map number 1, but like Dia said, nowhere to be found in map number 2. And Dojo, well, they're moving their way on up. I think they're finding a little bit of consistency there as they are at the 20-point mark. From there, it drops a little bit, right? We got Dudes Night Out and Ear in the 16th, not too far behind, but this is where we kind of start seeing the cliff at around 7th or 8th, right? Aim No Brain and No Name sitting at 13, and then we move into the single digits that are there. So obviously, we have a lot of Apex left to play. We have one more map of World's Edge left. So as we kind of get ready to head into game number 3, Mello, I'm really curious, right? If you are one of those single point digit teams, what is the new strategy? Because obviously what you've done so far for 2 maps on World's Edge hasn't really netted you maybe the points that you want as you get ready to transition into Storm points. So what are you doing if you're one of these squads who's looking to net some serious points before we move maps?
I think World's Edge is sort of the staple map where you need to execute your game plan. Sometimes the rings don't go your way. I mean, we've said it multiple times at this point, and I think anyone watching could agree that ring is absolutely brutal. Not even having the decency of ending on trials, but out to the northwest and who knows where near the sniper tower. So I think the execution of the game plan matters a lot. I think it's unsurprising that we saw a shift in the performance there, because some of the teams that sort of were able to navigate their game plan a little bit better with that ring in particular saw a little bit more success. So whether you get the luck of the draw on the ring is one thing, but whether you are making sure that your plan of attack is working out, I think that's going to be the name of the game, and that's what's going to bring consistency as we round out our games here on World's Edge.
I love that, because I think that's the number one thing we've seen sort of in Challenger Circuit over the sort of this year has always been is the teams that can play consistently are the teams that are able to come out on top, which I know is like a pretty like dumb thing to like say, like, oh, if you play good, you get points. Like, okay, yes, obviously. But when you're in these top tier lobbies, right, you can't let maybe a lackluster map number 2 be able to get you down, right? You still have one map here, and then you get to kind of shift. We know a lot of teams love to sort of change even their legend composition in between the 2 different maps. So you're hitting a little bit of a reset button here after this map, but you got to get through this one first. So, hey, Tenrek, Mello, I'm going to let you guys bring us on home.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dandro. Our last game of World's Edge, Tenrek, we got your eyes on, because I've actually loved the flow of a lot of these games and the way that the fights are sort of popping up and giving us a lot of delicious morsels to sort of munch on as we proceed to the end games. Some of those middle of the pack squads, I know you have your eyes out on them, but any teams right now that you think are about to have that big pop-off that they need?
It's a really tough call, but Donut Shop has been noticeably quiet so far today, Mellow Crit, and I don't think they can stand to be so quiet any longer. Their dominance is just too solid. On the other side of the crowd, though, I will say I have my eye on a couple other teams that are a little bit lower down in the rankings. Chatham's Prime B2, I think, is a team that we've touched on once or twice already tonight that has been looking a little more consistent than normal, because they're one of those teams that have been making it very often to CC finals, but unfortunately just underperforming when it comes down to it. They need to crack that glass ceiling, and it looks like they've come closer to it tonight. We'll see if that continues. Like Dan well put, we're only a third of the way through the night. There's still this pretty massive plateau, and while it's weathered away a little bit, there's still a question up in the air of whether or not this sort of a canyon between the top 7 teams and the bottom 13 teams transforms into a rift between halves of the lobby going outside of this game, or if it gets a little more competitive than that.
We'll see a team that certainly might finally get their opportunity to rack up some points here. Being on a 2-0 losing end of a contest is not a great way to start a Challenger Circuit Finals, but based on the player counts and unfortunately based on what I can see on our map over here on the side, I believe that Team Redeem has loaded in as a duo, and this team has cut on here, so they are looking to wipe them out completely very quickly here. Swiftly, Redeem is eliminated completely from the map, so make it 2-1, maybe 2 to 0.5, being that they didn't load in as a full stack. But now Addition, a new addition to the map for game number 3 here. They'll get an opportunity to play out their World's Edge game plan. They'll get a chance to finally do what they got to do without Redeem in the way.
Yeah, now the timeline's been split. We have a moment where Addition gets to shine, and let's see what they can do with it. I mean, like you said, it's definitely tough to be caught in that contest 3 times, but Addition offered a moment of respite here on Mirage Artois, and hopefully they use it to the best of their ability, because they have a lot of space to work with, and they are inside this opening circle, which is once again rocked us back northwest. Not nearly as drastically, though, as I imagine we'll probably take the circle to either Countdown, Landslide, or Monument, Mellow. But will that impact the rotations from the southern side of World's Edge? Because padding tends to shift pretty drastically when we have such an epicenter of a circle potentially reigning in. And, well, you still a good couple options. As this triple contest from Skyhook, because it is going to be relatively congested in this upcoming circle, does have to achieve some sort of climax. That climax will start with No Name falling, and Aim No Brain having 2 members still up and running, and that's not all the action we're getting to see. Donut Shop is also getting approached right now.
Donut Shop in dire straits right now. We see there that Davis Wave put down to basically 10 HP, but the knock has not come through from Retired. We're going to put down the wall to try and set this up. and also committing that Seer ultimate, but they've decided to back off from this. They don't want to draw too much attention, and this is important, having the restraint when you know you didn't get the early knock, when you can't wipe the fight quickly. Looking at where they are, I mean, it's like throwing blood in the water for the Piranhas to come lurking. It is not the situation you want to be in, so they're actually going to count their blessings. They're having done some damage to Donut Shop in terms of damaging their macro at least a little bit. They've decided to come back to this tunnel here just south of Skyhook and try and fend off this team that is looking to force their way in with not many other, I'd say, savory options on the other side because, yeah, Skyhook is starting to get pretty dang busy. Lots of rotations coming their way.
Yeah, we're starting to see a lot of traffic in just that tri-state area in general as everyone got the memo. You need to be there soon. You need to claim your spot. You need to have the pre-sale code ready for Skyhook. Reserve your spot, because that's where a lot of these teams think we're headed to, which means that's where a lot of the action is, which means that's where a lot of the KP is going to be anyway. Whether we migrate or not, it will be an exciting one, and the migration still looks to be in the minority, as indeed the circle will pull towards Skyhook and Countdown. 18 teams to go here, and the patience still legendary, pacing a big question as we, again, enter this halfway point, the last chance for some of these World's Edge teams to perform, and some of the favorites still have yet to perform. I noticed Crypt was still in that bottom 10. I believe that Retired and Edition still trying to wait for their chances. They are still up and running right now. I'm trying to see what other teams have been struggling.
Yeah, there's definitely a few. I mean, Redeem was kind of in that middle
Redeem
of the pack
and Revenge.
too. Team Revenge, yeah, there are a lot of teams in that conversation that are like that single digit,
yeah.
You know, so definitely keeping an eye out for them. I did want to shout out that Retired just have Casellas on that team, which definitely a lovely sight to see here back in the ALGS. Very high pedigree player, has experience, you know, from back in the T1 Apex days, had multiple stints with Series E and with Oxygen, so definitely no slouch here, but slouching right now is the team on the other side of Edition's onslaught right now. They've hardly taken damage on Jito, maybe 25 HP taken so far, make that 50. This push could be deadly for the defending squad right now.
They're still trying to head up. This is For Fun Gamers defending themselves, and Mango's already quite low. Edition still taking out the low ground, and again being very patient with this, but that's because Sponge is on the other side and has tried to go for the flank for the high ground. Whiffs most of those shots, but the damage is already done. And Edition will be able to breach the building and have enough time to heal up over here in Fissure. They do not have any contesting, and they can actually move a couple different directions. They may need to take the long road, which means they may need to do that now, but they are super prepped to after a very well-earned fight. And that is now 2 squad wipes for Edition, who going into this had a one singular point, and that is still the kind of seesaw we have in this CC. And that drastic change of rankings will no doubt continue into the great beyond that we call Stormpoint, no doubt. But Edition still have work to do, far too much, because they cannot clinch an LCQ spot from here, being a team that has 0 points walking into this. They need to win in order to grab a spot in that LCQ. So they have to get hungry now, because after these 2 games, they have so much work to make up.
The hunger seems to be helping them out right now. I see that they have probably, if I'm not mistaken, 5 KP, having picked up the Team Redeem duo, as well as the squad we just saw wiped off the map on your screen. So Edition taking a fight that's actually great for their position. This is a lovely spot for them to hold, because while they aren't necessarily, you know, comfortably looking at this next ring, or at least the next ring that we've seen a preview for, they have a lot of vantage points from which they can pick that likely all-important 3P they're going to have to take to move into the next zone.
Speaking of next zone, everybody trying to make their trail here. You're no different, and as less teams are able to find spots in Skyhook, more teams are starting to gatekeep the outskirts of it. And so you're struggling a little bit, but maintaining this comp that you lauded so well with this Crypto Bang Cat combo. I really like it too. Has a lot of great ways to wall break in fashions that a lot of other teams can't seem to crack with stuff like the Rampart and the Loba. And even the Caustics that we'll see 1 or 2 of, particularly strong ones, in this lobby today.
Yeah, and I have to harken back to Escape's own words on why the crypto. Well, crypto because people scan OP, almost verbatim there. Looking for a comp that is giving them the most flexibility, because ultimately, as they've shown in Challenger Circuit 3 with, all random compositions throughout their time there, but especially now that they're not doing that, picking a comp that's going to give them that flexibility where, again, their macro is effectively solved by that crypto people scan. They can do it remotely. They can do it from so many spots on the map. And on top of that, of course, featuring that cat that can play both that zone style, holding down buildings, putting up those walls when they absolutely need it, as well for rotates. So a lot of double duty being done. And the Bangalore, very, very much... You traditionally see that really only on those sort of edge style compositions where your aggression is kind of your most important asset, but they're actually utilizing it for those micro rotates if they ever run into them. So definitely a really solid look for them. Not as much of a solid look for Donut Shop though, and Most Hated is hunting right now.
Yeah, Most Hated still on this prowl up at Skyhook and receiving very little contesting from anybody. Nasty is strangely in very quiet territory, but it looks like this squad is kind of molded themselves a good corner of this zone that they can utilize to their advantage for at least the next round and some change, as they will continue to just box out the opponents, throw those elbows, and seems to be working pretty well so far, as the rest of the teams will say, okay, I don't want any of it, and we'll migrate down to that southern edge of Skyhook. Meanwhile, one of those teams trying to migrate through, the Dojo, has finally met Team Yer halfway. And they are about to be met by an early 3P as well. Oh, Dojo with the hybrid low ground. This might be good for, this might not be good for them.
They're struggling a little bit here. It seems like they've stabilized and they have staved off Yer, so they're yeeting their way away right now, but I don't think they've actually fallen. So Doe now has a bit of a power spot that they can certainly use to exert that pressure that they need to on some of the squads that are in here a little bit later than they are. Not too much left, though. We can see on our maps, at least, that TS Mex is one of those squads that is very much late to the party. And the team that we see here struggling right in front of us, you're just doing so much work here to shove them away, to maybe find a knock, maybe look for a fight. But again, that restraint that they're exercising here to realize, all right, we've shoved this team off. This has sort of helped us out with our next rotate here, so we're just going to take that opportunity. Catwall down to cover their tracks a little bit more smoke. To try and get a little further along. They're going to lose their crypto in the process, and that'll be a full thirst for them. You're forced to play this out as a duo, and they're still not in the next zone.
Yeah, this is just such a tough spot to be in. They ran away from Dojo. They were still being contested by Chadamus Prime, and now they've run right into the arms of, I believe this is Beamers, who will instead choose to rotate back out as Yer will actually be a little bit safe again. Nobody is going to go for the reapproach, and everybody's just kind of go back to their own thing, as Chadamus Prime will actually meet up with Beamer. Beamers actually rotated into a fight, potentially, with Chadamus Prime via this southwestern rotation. We'll see if that fully climaxes. Skyhook seems to be mostly figured out. A lot of teams just taking pot shots for the most part, farming damage, waiting for the rest of the crowds to get here. As meanwhile, TS Max, like you said, late to the party, and now they very well may pay the price for it, as Visenko watches from the outskirts. That looks terrifying. Or no, that's not...
We're going to see Chadamus Prime on your screen right now. They got shoved off by Yer, and now they might be meeting their maker, Adium, the last player standing, trying to put down a little bit of that all-important healing to try and turn this fight around, but it looks like they're down to a 1v1, and what a clever use of the Horizon Tactical there. Almost gets the damage that was needed to win this fight outright, and is going to swing around the corner holding the door, but it was blocked, and Beamers is wiped off the map by Chadamus Prime, who has waltzed into a team fight win here and will pick up that loot. Is the revenge coming, though? They've looped all the way around, and they might be meeting Yer again.
Yeah, Yer is trying to circle back, but Crypt is keeping eyes on them, so Yer might reconsider having to dip inside this, because they'll know they'll have to run back into Crypt, who is just totally keeping alive the outside of the circle. So instead, yeah, Yer are going to rotate yet again, and this time he'll be heading back up to meet Addition. It is just, no matter where they go, they have to beat the team. but they have to find a place in which they can be the better one. Have, you know, the positioning, the util, something, anything to work with. And knowing they have this time around, the Dark Veil will be reactively thrown up, and the fight will at least be stalled. If not completely stopped, depending on how this rotation goes. No, still looking at each other. In addition, is still on these outskirts. Will do the first bit of chasing by throwing everything they've got before inevitably having to get inside this circle themselves. And a bit of damage done, as now Ur has to find another way out. It will tunnel through and shed off this damage yet again, but Ur constantly just accosted here, and it doesn't look like Addition is done. They might want more.
And yeah, that's ultimately sort of what happens when you lose a member, when your macro sort of gets thrown by the wayside and you're just fighting to survive. Like you said, taking a big breath of air and just going underwater for as long as possible, but Addition looking to just bury them completely. No water here. Only graves. It's looking as clean as you would like, but unfortunately for your Addition was ready to take that down. They wanted that KP. They wanted to clear that edge of zone, so they're going to pick up a nice little bit of scrap loot from the two members that were properly looted, and Ur will fall in 13th.
Man, are Redeem going to be the reason that Addition hasn't found first yet? That is a third squad wipe coming from them, and they have made it look pretty easy for the most part. Have not struggled all too much, and they're ready to go again as Crypt has to reset up here.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if Redeem was just keeping the real hounds from the rest of the map. And
right.
Now that we're seeing them on full display. It's another team you gotta be sweating about. Speaking of teams that you certainly want to be worrying about when you're taking a fight with them. Dude's Night Out has come back from what seemed like almost a knock, but now there's a 3P in their sights. They have to deal with the team above them, though, and they're going to find the push to start that off. It's going to be Bunk Wavy falling first, and Aim No Brain decimated by Dude's Night Out. Dude's Night Out will now get to loot up, recover, and still has time to maybe engage in this 3P, but they might not need to at all. Look at where this zone is, and they have the caustic to stabilize, so I think they're going to sit tight for a bit. Nice win for them.
Crypt might have just dropped on them, though, so they might be fighting again. They might have gone for the late third party. Chatamus Prime also trying to stave off as much as they can for the time being, and they're just barely able to get that SWAD wipe. Addition's reign finally ends, and it's at the hands of a team that has a much more storied history with coming from the brink. Another team that has to work super duper hard to even have a chance at clinching a spot or having a chance at a spot, as Slacking unfortunately will go down in that back line. Not sure what happened there, but it looks like Chatamus Prime going to have to run with 2 for this upcoming circle, as we do indeed trot on over to Skyhook, where everybody is trying to take a spot.
And not to hit the pun too hard, but I think that Chatamus Prime has unfortunately literally ended between a rock and a hard place, playing between the wall and the mountain. So no one's really paying attention to them, so that's actually pretty solid spot for them to try and sneak a few more placement points here before this next zone closes. Dude's Night Out, though, not looking for that placement. And in this situation in particular, they're looking for that KP. The Crypt has been taken out, but that fight was definitely crucial because now they control one of the last of 3 buildings that is still in this next zone. We have multiple floors for the team in the east, so likely we'll have to give one of those up and coexist as more teams start to flood in. 9 squads left, Tenric, before ring number 5 starts to close. This is absolutely packed, and the party is just moments from getting started.
Yeah, Dojo is going to finally step out and stretch their legs, too, outside of this cavern. They'll immediately meet Chatamus Prime, or at least the fragments of them, but that's about all they'll see, as the rest of the teams are just simply too occupied with being inside these buildings. FSQ is going to try and make a rotation to a safe one, but the only one is the one that's still claimed by Dude's Night Out, who is about to take yet another taker in what I believe is Pain and Suffering, and indeed, they will get wiped out so dang fast, partially at the hands of FSQ, who will now try to make that immediate entryway in now. They'll need to coexist, though, because of how low those shields are, and so Dude's Night Out might see a window of opportunity. He'll try to pounce on it, but with such low health, it's kind of dicey for them too. Lil can manage it all, though, and as Vysenko falls in the in-between, Dude's Night Out on the way to shredding yet another squad. They will succeed. They will keep this building. FSQ falls, and we're down to 6.
Beautiful defense there of their building. Dude's Night Out understanding that if they can just shove this team off, find the opening damage to get a knock, and just barrel through with a full squad wipe, means that they probably have one of the best positions to play out this next zone. They know that there's so many teams to the south side that are just begging for space but not really finding it, at least not for free. Team Revenge being one of those gatekeepers here. They find themselves in another top 10 situation here, top 6 in this case. And look at the peaks. They don't even have to do most of the work. Chatham's Prime is eliminated in the process, and we still have the Dojo playing this building as well.
Yeah, Dojo now inside it. Revenge trying to find the damage from the top here. Cobra looking for it with that L-Star. Couldn't find anything on the Chatham's Prime, but maybe we'll try and spot something here as Dude's Night Out might finally get fully trounced. So much pressure on them. Yeah, most hated. I think they are the one team that is quick enough and kitted enough to handle this finally, but Koifel is not done yet. This fight is not done, and it might not be with just one player. Duplex is still up and running and will just barely make it inside. Koifel's gonna go for the res here. And Dude's Night Out might still have 2 up. Yeah, no one can reapproach this fully. Most Hated's gonna try, but Awopa's the only one who can get up quick enough. That's a lot of opening damage, though, and Dude's Night Out may still be finished. They'll try to re-enter and a couple shields to work with for Dude's Night Out, but there just might be too much in the mix. Laser down first. Awopa to a crumb. Dynasty looking for the way in, and we'll have to take some extra time to go for that res. Still surviving, as Dude's Night Out will fully fall to the remainder of that damage coming through to the team. It is finally a new team's building, finally down to our final 4, but still only 3 places of shelter remaining. How much coexisting can further happen here, Mello?
Absolutely none of it right now, because this is down to, I believe, our last 4 squads, if I'm counting correctly on my screen, and DNO not being in the picture means we won't be seeing that caustic smoke, which can cause absolutely absurd amounts of terror in those end games. So no caustic ult means that now it'll be down to which teams have the bubbles, which teams have that ultimate that we have been seeing more and more as this season has progressed. Who has the Gibbies? Who has the Catwalls? This is about to be a mess. The Dojo already getting their door blocked off by a huge black hole. Team Revenge taking to the sky, and here we go. Henrik, the last 4, the last ring starts to close.
Revenge still trying to offer that last ability. It may not work, though, as they've started a firefight far too early, and there may not be the health to keep up with it. Down to just 1 in Doctoena, and still weaving through these Dark Veils. That's at least time gone, but there goes Retired, one of the only other teams that didn't have any points coming into this CC. 4th place is a solid start, but is it too little, too late, and not enough for the rest of these teams who are lighting up the kill feed? Most Hated and Dojo have finished their duel as well, and it's down to a 1v1 that Doctoena has the drop on. Team Revenge take the dub from the high ground. Ultimately, is there enough value in it? Does it really matter at this point? We're halfway through that CC, and taking that dub is still a big deal.
You gotta wonder how much ground Most Hated just made up with the amount of kills that they were finding there after wiping out DNO, after wiping out that 3rd place squad right in front of you. That was big points for them, but gotta shout out Team Revenge. This iteration of the team has been a blast to watch. Carlon fam making it back to a Challenger Circuit final is an absolute treat, and they're showing exactly why when they made their way to that part of the zone, they were able to just hold it down for oh so long, pressuring so many teams, including the Dojo, which is a team that was recognized as that sort of top-heavy Titan that you might need to be worrying about. They're making it look easy. They're making quick work of some of the best Challenger Circuit squads out there right now. So love to see them picking up that dub, and middle of the pack team no more, I reckon, because that is at least 12 points for the win, a little bit more off the top for the kills as well.
Yeah, surely. A lot of these teams, I think, kind of finding their breakout moment in these first 3 games. It's tough to say what the leaderboard is going to look like because of that. We're going to allow a little time for them to crunch those numbers, as we'll take a bit of a longer break than normal, but we'll be right back here with Game 4 in just a little while. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everybody. We've made it through 3 maps of World's Edge. Let's all collectively take a deep breath as we mentally prepare to point the storm. I probably could have come up with something way better for that on the break, but it doesn't matter. Okay, we have half of our games done, and we are ready to talk about the scoreboard, talk about kind of what we have going on. But let's just talk about that last game because Tenrek and Mello, they did a fantastic job breaking it down, but they were casting, and we got some big brains here on the desk, and I'm always curious to hear their thoughts. So Tom, I want to kick it off with you first, right? I think we saw some teams just kind of flexing their muscles a little bit, right? We got some top tier squads here that really kind of made it known that they are in this challenger circuit because they want that spot in the LCQ.
Yeah, I mean, huge win there for Team Revenge. They've had I'd say they've had a pretty poor challenger circuit by their standard.
Sure.
I'll be completely fair. I think that they've got some really, really good players on their roster, and Carlon as the IGL is very experienced. They've been up there and they've made plenty of finals before. They've had a slight roster change, and they're one of the teams that has to win today. They are nowhere near on points. The only way they're getting into the LCQ is by winning today, and they're going to be so pleased with that game because that end game was full of big teams. You had Dudes Night Out in the end game, you had Dojo in the end game. So, that wasn't a free win, that wasn't an easy win by any means, and they called that zone really well, and they played the end game perfectly, winning that 1v1 at the end. So, they're doing everything they need to do right now, and now they have to storm the point successfully and win a couple more games if they want to really lock it in.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the one thing I took away too, right? When you looked at the teams, sometimes in some of these maps you look and it's like, okay, you have maybe some teams that are just clawing for some placement points that are there, but this was like some heavy hitter squads that were left there at the end, right? And we can even see there when we pull it up on the total boards. But I mean, Dia, when I'm looking at this, right? I mean, Team Revenge, it was great. I'm glad they were able to take home the dub, but they only had 3 KP to match up with it. Is that enough when you have squads like Most Hated, who's right behind them, taking 11 KP? You got Dudes Night Out in 5th with 10, and they're able to get a total of 14 points. I mean, great, cool, but is this going to be enough as we move into Storm Point?
Is it enough in general? Yes. Is it enough in this lobby where Revenge have to find first place? Absolutely not. And that's what they got to be worried about moving into Storm Point as well, is that World's Edge, I think, complements Team Revenge's playstyle quite well. Storm Point is an entirely different beast, and teams that we've been talking about throughout the day, in fact, I'd highlight, like Most Hated even, should be having a very good time. The Crypt, who finished 10th in this lobby, and Edition, who managed to finally make it out of Lava Fisher, taking down Redeem, slayed out with 10 kills. They only got 1 placement point, but this team is absolutely the one that I looked at in Game 3 and went, oh, they're hungry.
Yeah, guess what? It's feasting time. But let's take a little bit of a aperitif and look at the total leaderboard. I don't really know what aperitif means, I'm going to be honest with you. And I know it's associated with dinner. Global leaderboard as we have here. Guess what? It is, of course, TSMX at the top. That Game 3, I believe I saw they only got 1 point. And yet with that, they are still able to maintain their top at the top of the leaderboard. And then we have Dojo, who yet again is still making some strides with solid back-to-back games. 32 points, only 1 point behind that top spot. And Dudes Night Out and Most Hated, this is just a party here at the top. KSR, they slipped a little bit, but they really aren't that far behind. Tom, I mean, when we take a look at this leaderboard as we get ready to move into the back half of the map set, I mean, some of these squads at the top, they are kind of ready to swing.
Yeah, and look, it's just the classic Challenger Circuit all to play for. We've got some really evenly matched teams, and a name that we haven't mentioned yet at all is Donut Shop. They're sitting down there in 15th. They are, I mean, look, they're in a Challenger Circuit finals. Their LCQ place is double secured, so I don't think they're going to be crying themselves to sleep about this slow start on World's Edge. But it just shows, the strength in depth, and that, they are still a threat, right? We've seen how good they are on both maps. If they somehow turn it on and, really find the form that we've seen over the last couple of Challenger Circuit finals, then, this whole event could be on its head because it is so close right now. No one is running away with it. And, of course, it's only a win, right, that really locks in that LCQ spot. So that means that, our team's going to go big. How aggressive are the last few games going to get as teams realize, okay, right, look, we need 20 points this game to catch up to first place. So, we have to play for 20 points. So we will see exactly how it goes. And whether it is those teams at the top that keep pushing and keep putting points down, or whether we're going to have somebody, from that bottom half, like a Crypt, like a Donut Shop, that pulls out an absolute nuke and just shakes up the whole leaderboard.
I think that's a really good point, right? I mean, we've seen some teams do some fantastic stuff on World's Edge, but some of these teams, like you said, that are towards the bottom, Stormpoint's a whole new map. We bring in new legends. It's a little bit different play style, potentially. You might feel more comfortable on it. They can start dropping some bombs and really start to, shake it up. I love that we pull up the stats of Donut Shop, because normally we do that to showcase, like, wow, look at this team's damage and kills. And we're just like, yeah, they're kind of sucking, which is a little unfortunate to see there. But I think if we know anything, maybe they're just kind of having fun tonight. Like you said, they're double qualified. They have easily, if they didn't win 2 weeks, obviously, of Challenger Circuit, I think they'd still even have enough points to feel pretty confident that they're going to be sliding into that LCQ. But let's talk a little bit about that, Dia, though, because if you're one of these squads that's at the top, are you worried about that as we kind of get ready to shift maps? I mean, do you think that this could be enough of a shakeup of a quote-unquote sort of like macro meta that they have to be worried, or is it more just like, hey, stick to the game plan, stick to what we're doing, because obviously it's producing some results?
I don't think that now is the time to worry. I think tomorrow is the time to worry. If you get the patch tomorrow and you go, oh, this is not working for me, then you should start worrying. Absolutely. If not, stick to your guns, because at this point into Challenger Circuit, it is way better to be practicing a play style that you believe works well for you. Because if you've made it to the Challenger Circuit finals, unless you are one of those teams that really does have to win today, your goal isn't to find yourself in first place. You're probably making it anyway. Your goal is to practice for LCQ.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, right? Because obviously in that LCQ, let's talk a little bit about it. You have some teams that are coming down from the Pro League. You have other teams that you've been playing against Challenger Circuit the entire time. So it's definitely not a walk in the park at all. But hey, guess what? We have our first map of Stormpoint ready to go. The players are in. We're getting ready to drop on in. So, Tom, I'm going to hand it off to you as we get ready to drop into the back half of this tonight.
Thank you very much, Dandro. Stormpoint, what a map. I think the differences between World's Edge are night and day. Dia, which teams do you think are really going to be reveling the slight change that we're about to head into now we're heading on Stormpoint?
I think most hated are going to do really well. No Name historically have had a pretty decent time on this map as well. I'd like to see the Crypt do decently, but actually looks like I might have caster cursed them a little bit, because No Name are already struggling just a bit at the start of the map, having lost Gyozi. Chikis should be able to heal up relatively safely, but contesting in Lightning Rod 2 versus 3, not a great spot to be in, and Den Pride is going to have to make use of the high ground to use and abuse this position. No Name have a nice pincer maneuver that they can pull off here. Lark does end up going down, and they should have this in the bag, but Chikis is going low, getting jumped on from above. He finds Flesh, finds the knock, and it's down to a 1v1, as so much of tonight has been. And No Name do come out on top.
Pain and suffering there as you lose your off-drop contest, and No Name will be hoping that they get the space to reset, bring Gyozi back, probably take their time now. Lightning Rod is one of the POIs on this map that I think is pretty contestable, because you have the IMC, you have the Prowler's Nest nearby as well. You have plenty of opportunities not to end up sort of short-handed because you have to take that fight. They're thinking 3 points on the board, plenty of opportunity to get loot. They've even got crafting this game as well, so they can really take time and work their way in down the hill, as we see a zone which I think is going to be pulling probably just slightly north of Checkpoint, which would be a really, really strong zone for teams like Dojo.
Would be really nice. I am concerned about Dojo as we move on to this map, however, because they are center zone. Not sure how they're actually going to find the kills that they clearly desire. I mean, you only have to read the names on the team to go, well, they're not exactly going to be bunkering down with Caustic Gibraltar, are they? And as we move a little further into this game, as 4 Fun Gamers start closing the gap on Checkpoint, if you're approaching this POI early, you're putting yourself in danger.
Yeah, and I think the question is, which teams do have the zone knowledge? Which teams have been able to scan? There was a number of teams at Northpad. I think there was 2 teams at Northpad. They chose not to fight, but have either of them been able to get any information? One team that clearly does have zone knowledge is KSR. They have that Rampart that can scan the console. Clearly they are playing for zone. They have Valkyrie to get there quickly, and they have Loba to steal loot for everybody else who worked really hard to get it. So they're set up, and the question is, which teams are nearby, which teams do have that information. The dojo have the catalyst, so they could have scanned. I'm not sure if there was. Looking at the map, I don't think that there was a console at checkpoint, so they don't have zone knowledge. So they're going to do this armory, and hopefully they'll be able to work out that with the amount of teams nearby, that they're in just about the right spot for zone.
Yeah, not a terrible position to be in, even if they want to hold down this IMC. Third party in one of these fights, perhaps, is Chadamus Prime, are sat in the hot dog buildings with not too much to do about it. It's unlikely to end up moving from here, and they've actually chosen to run Gibraltar on this map. I made a joke about it earlier looking at Dojo, but Chadamus Prime, equally surprising to see them picking up the beefy lad.
Yeah, I think, they're a day early, right, for Gibby's return to competitive. I think that when Sia gets his huge changes tomorrow, maybe that will open the door for more Gibraltar. But he still has a lot to offer, and I think he has especially a lot to offer in those situations where you are the only one. To have that bubble down, to be the only team with a bubble. The old game used to be, who timed their bubble last, right? It'd be, I have to do my bubble 2 seconds after your bubble, so we're going to have 2 seconds to kill you. When it drops, that was kind of the game, and using your utility right. But when you are the only Gibby team in a situation, in a fight, in an end circle, then that can be a huge advantage. I think he still has plenty to offer, but that building is very difficult to hold, especially without a catalyst to lock in those doors or even a Watson with a pylon. So the question is, how safe are they in that hot dog building?
Now, you and I were discussing this a little bit earlier as well, but it's definitely worth talking about what Jivy brings to a comp when zones are becoming more unpredictable as well. Because if you tuned into EMEA Challenger Circuit this morning, you would have seen Pro League rejects be able to find a win simply because nobody could shoot at them for a few seconds. Now, that was due to terrain, but Gibby can create that really whenever you want. So if you do have a zone that's pulling out into the open, if you are finding yourself in an uncomfortable situation towards the end game, those few seconds can mean lots of placement points, if not kills, to come afterwards.
Yeah, being able to just buy some time is unbelievably powerful in certain situations. But I think on the flip side is Gibraltar does tend to get focused as well in fights. Teams will obviously he has that large hitbox, so that's one reason. But actually, because his utility is so powerful, people do tend to really focus him as well. So it can sometimes be difficult to navigate your Gibraltar into those end zones to really, win you that game. But one way to do it is to send them up into the air. Fat man flying towards zone right now. And if Donut Shop can set up in a strong position and get there safely, which it looks like they are, no real damage being taken, only a couple of little tickles from the charge rifle, then they are in that great spot. So the question is, how do you get Gibraltar into that position? And Valkyl, definitely one of the strong ways to do that.
And this is the really powerful thing about Donut Shop, because their composition has not changed at all. From the first time that we saw this roster, they've continued to use Rampart, Gibraltar, Valkyrie, even in this meta where people are choosing sometimes to opt out of Valkyrie for other legends. The fact that they've stuck with this, it illuminates their game plan so much. It is fly, bubble if necessary, and set up an unpushable area. And it works. It works disturbingly well.
And I think, on board here with Team Revenge taking a fight, very, very, very deep in zone.
Nice.
Nice wipe out of TSMX. That's our lobby leader there. So opportunity for teams to pass and take that first place as we head into our last couple of games. TSMX eliminated with probably 0 points. Jumping back onto Donut Shop, I think one thing I respect about them is they're playing a playstyle that, with all due respect to them and their ability, is the sort of playstyle that a team from Challenger Circuit probably has to adopt to be successful and make champs through the LCQ. I as much as I have a lot of respect for all the players in this lobby, are Challenger Circuit teams when you're faced with, all the Pro League teams that are qualified for LCQ, dropping 20 bombs every game, running it down mid? Probably not. And you have the match point format to think about if you do make it to the LCQ final. And I tell you what, if I was a betting man and I had Donut Shop in a match point format lobby, I'd be putting all my chips on Donut. Because
this is not betting advice, but
no, absolutely not. Please do not take gambling advice from me. The only gambling I do is I bet against my favorite soccer team, so I'm either happy or rich. That's the only gambling I do. It's smart, yeah. But their playstyle, I think, is perfectly suited for the LCQ, and it's great that they're using the Challenger circuit, not to joke around, not to, you know, do whatever because they've already qualified because their spot's locked in, but to treat this as practice, you know, what zones, where do they pull, what spots can we play, where does this comp work, because when you play defensively and you bunker down, it doesn't really matter who's pushing you, it matters if the spot is viable, and sometimes the Challenger circuit is even more aggressive and there are less teams in zone, so it's almost like stress testing, because there are a lot of spots that are good if other teams are in zone looking over you and protecting you from being pushed from certain places. So I think that they're really setting themselves up for success in the LCQ.
And that is the goal for quite a few teams that are in attendance today, is stress testing. I love that word, to look forward into the LCQ and figure out what is going to work best for your team in these high-pressure situations. We do have a bit of a high-pressure situation actually developing in Checkpoint, with a lot of teams sat up next to each other. For now, it's a long-distance battle, but Zone's not going Checkpoint, so at some point, this is devolving.
Yeah, Checkpoint is very strangely laid out, where you have this sort of dead space in the middle, and who is running into that space? You know, nobody has that Gibby. So the question is, will teams back off? Will they go around while they have a chance? Because like you said, zones just do not pull to Checkpoint. Zone will not be here. These teams are not in the final zone, and they know that, and that puts extra pressure on. You know, this isn't a wait-and-see zone. Everybody knows that zones don't pull to Checkpoint because of the platform, because heal-off zones aren't in the game. So it's who's going to blink first, who's going to move. Everybody wants that easy rotate into zone down to that bunker, you know, on the other end of the zip, but only one team can take it without getting fought. So what's going to happen? And there's 3 teams in there right now, and, you know, Dudes Night Out are not going to back off from a fight. Yeah, I've already qualified for LCQ, and they might int according to their names. So, you know, we have a real recipe here for a bit of a spicy fight. And of course, there's already a team in the bunker as well. So even whoever, you know, comes out of Checkpoint alive still is going to be gatekept.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too keen on pushing beamers in that bunker at the bottom of Checkpoint either. With the way that Akimbo clutched the first round on World's Edge today, you know you're going up against a gunny.
I just wouldn't push beamers. I'd be like, can we get a name check on those guys? Nope. Yeah, okay, Valkyrie away. See you later.
If only. That's where your IGLing really comes in handy. You're able to go, oh, that's beamers, we don't fight them. Versus,
that's where Seer, that should have been the Seer change, is instead of giving you the information about the health and the location, it just gives you the names. You can just scan someone and go, yep, no, that's Koifel. Nope, we're moving away. Like,
I love the idea that I love the idea that you're using that in ranked, and you're just, I don't know, running around checking people's names on what is a website that people use? Apex.
Like, oh my god, it's Orange Sock 27. Let's not push that guy. Like, maybe that is useful information.
It could be. I mean, sometimes you get a little bit of extra time. You're playing in zone. May as well do some scouting on the folks around you. Now, for some of our squads who are not sat in Checkpoint, you do have a little bit more free time and a lot more extra space to play with, especially in these low-down bunkers. There are a lot of corners, crevices that these teams will be able to survive in until the later stages of the game. But where we started, squads in gazebos are going to have a lot to say about that, because they already control the upper ground, where teams will try and escape, will try and find a little bit of a respite from these skirmishes. And a squad like Donut Shop, for example, who we already talked about have this very forgiving composition, are going to be very powerful as the next zone closes and teams are forced out into the open.
Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely spot on, because they can play out. A lot of teams have to play in the trenches. Even, you know, the gazebos, they don't really have an ultimate safe spot. There is no position in there where if you're getting looked at in, you know, 2, 3, 4 angles, that there is a spot where you can sit where nobody can see you, and that makes those positions really difficult. But one way to do that is to be Rampart, right? And Gibby. Your walls go down, you have the bubble. You know, teams do not have the resources to, you know, to break those Rampart glass shields over and over and over again. They have to choose when to do it. They have to choose their moments, and speaking of choosing a moment, J-Trips chooses the perfect moment there to take a shot at Timmy, deals barely any damage and gets a kill there, and Dojo are short-handed, and that was them getting out of the armory, I think.
And just a little unfortunate for them there. I was wondering what happened. J-Trips, as you said, very little that he actually did, but gonna look pretty good on the feed, as that's one that you can clip and send home to mom. You took out Timmy, and Donut Shop have already done themselves a good deed.
So you need one of those little digital photo frames that just plays like the 5-second clip on your desk over and over and over again.
Yeah. You remember when those were a thing? I thought those were the future when I was young, man.
Yeah.
It was like Harry Potter.
True. I mean,
Yeah.
Just don't believe everything you see on Harry Potter. That's how I broke my nose at King's Cross Station. But that's okay.
No. Yeah, that'll be a difficult time in your life. I'm not looking forward to having to explain to my little sister when eventually she goes that it's not quite safe. Although I'm sure they've made a tourist attraction of it. Jadamus Prime, bit of a attraction themselves, have found themselves faced with Timmy's death box. They're taking pictures with it, they're looting it, they're having a grand old time, but they can only do so for a few more seconds because the zone is closing in.
Get the quick Snapchat filter out, dog emojis, like. What a time to be near Timmy's death box. We can only be so lucky.
We'll see how long it lasts. That this is wow. Okay, well, you talked about early bubble usage earlier. That is very early and very out of zone. The Sam the Doubter would be accurate.
Yeah, and the thing is when there's only a few Gibby teams, you see that bubble, everybody's staring. It's literally bright orange. It's glowing. It is we have used our best utility. We are about to be very, very squishy, and clearly we were very panicked a minute ago because that's why we threw it. So, it depends. Really using that bubble, I think there's a lot of risk and reward, and the risk there, Shadowmas Prime eliminated, Donut Shop using their bubble, at a far more appropriate time, and already in some cover, but they are now also going to be pushed.
The fact that Kanaka and Casellos were trying to push past Designful at that moment, though, stops their push for just long enough that Donut Shop have a moment to recover. Retired instead are the ones that have to sit back. Designful, I don't know whether he knew it or not, but saved Donut Shop. And perhaps permanently there. KSR are going to go down, and Retired just managed to play this little bit of the bunker when it could have been disastrous.
Yeah, it looks like Design is going to meet the Crypt there as Retired. Also still involved in that engagement with Donut Shop. It's absolute carnage all around it. The Sheila is out. But can Kanaka fight it? Can he get in that bubble with the Mastiff?
Okay. Retired do end up taking the fight. It was a close one, though, with Ace going extraordinarily low. Fortunately, had a Mastiff and was prepared for what you really need when you rock up to a Gibby.
Honestly, just a tear in my eye that we just saw a bubble fight in Apex Legends in 2023. Like, candle in the air for M&K players. We are back. If Gibby is back, then, shotguns are back. And, it will be a real nice change from just constant R9 and car fights all the time. As we see, look what his second weapon is. It's an R9. I bet that there's an R9 or a car on all three of these players, so it'll be interesting to see if Shotgun Meta does come back. But one of the things I just want to shine a light on is just how many teams just got closed out there in that zone. And still teams are in checkpoint. We have 35 seconds. We've already seen one side of zone get completely cleared on the north. But there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 teams here on the south.
This is
unbelievable. Yeah.
Pick up an extra kill. As you said, not a whole lot of time left for you, but they got to consider what their next move is, because I'd much rather go around the long way here. No Name seemed dead set on walking through the center of checkpoint. Maybe this is the play. Just try and pick up as many kills as you can on those that were unprepared to rotate from earlier, but with Dude's Night out in the fray, who knows who's coming out on top.
Yeah, I mean, look, this team is confident in their fights, and they're going to think this is a great opportunity to pick up as many kills as possible.
Please.
Yeah, Duplex is absolutely working them. And Koiful doing what Koiful does best and, running through people with the car, but he is down, and they're going to want to get him back in the game as quickly as possible.
Fortunately, on the low ground right now, Koiful's going to get full thirsted. The chance of a respawn very, very low, as the ring isn't going to give you a whole lot of time to do it. Heal going to get canceled, and QZZ tries to disengage. In comes the third party, and Yer have shown up. As a reminder, they have, in fact, already made their way in, but it doesn't mean they can't party for a little while. They do still have just a small corner of checkpoint, and high ground even better to play.
Yeah, and look, when they saw that fight going on for so long and they saw, trades in the kill feed, go, 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 go is the best thing to do. And to really, wipe that out, and they've picked up, I think, at least a couple of kills, and they do have this really, really strong high ground spot. Not just that, the teams underneath them have to fight. There is no coexisting down here behind rocks and twigs.
Christ almighty.
Wow, and look at that. How many teams we have just lost? Almost half the lobby has just died on the south side of this zone. Unbelievable.
Not getting too much better either. Beamers still await any team that would try and make it down. We do have some attention attracted. Redeem even starting to look up. See if they can find some of the members of Year who are still stacked on this little square left of checkpoint, but it ain't looking too hopeful. It is in all but actual I guess fact that these folks are dead. Year should not be making it out of here, and if they do, they deserve to win the game.
The question is I think for them, the equation is now, can we kill the team gatekeeping us before we get thirded by the next layer in, the next team behind, which is looking like it's going to be Redeem, probably. You know, but they're going to back off. They've got a little bit of space, but one thing they don't have is time. And they can't Valkyrie, but they might have an evac tower. Could an evac tower save them here? Are they about to pull off one of the greatest rotates of all time? We will see. They are in the air as we speak, and they are looking for a spot in zone.
I cannot believe they're getting away with this. And look, there's already space. Okay, there is space for them to land. They've all landed separately, so I guess we're just placing our bets in a lot of different areas, but it seems to be working because I haven't seen one of them hit the ground yet. Instead, Redeem are going to start pushing up, finally taking down the first, and that's the beginning of the end. However, Redeem have exposed their backs, and it's a problem because Beamers are ready to strike. Coming out as the zone closes in, Redeem are going to farm them and manage to pick up a couple kills, but not before they go down first. Most Hated turning their attention to the edge of zone. The Beamers are down. Redeem is out, but you know, still alive? Yeah, it's here.
And I think that is escape for any Year spotters at home trying to work out who's who. I think that is escape, hiding behind a pipe, and we still have the crypt involved. You know, the crypt finally making an end game. So we'll see. You know, there's not many teams left, and we've just had three basically like extinction events in this game. We've had one at the north of the zone, one at the south of the zone, then one, you know, just as everybody else had to leave checkpoint. This has been absolutely brutal.
Most Hated don't have, unfortunate to see Year go down, don't have that much to worry about though, because they have high ground. It's a matter of controlling those on the low ground, and with a Digi for laser, I mean, who's going to walk up to you? You can see through everything. Catalyst Wall's the only thing that could encroach on Most Hated's territory, and certainly not if they're putting out damage like this. This end game, however, going to be a little bit complicated for them, as it will pull into the open, and the teams down in the bunkers are not about to fight each other. We are not handshaking giving a win to another squad. Everybody here is playing for the 12 points at the end of the road.
This might be one of those situations where having the best spot is actually the worst spot, because, you know, you can't argue that Most Hated do not have the best spot in zone right now, in theory, but both of these teams are coming from different angles. They've got no way to see each other. They've got no reason to want to fight each other, and they both know where the game-winning spot is. Can you hold off 6 people at once right now when you've got Catalyst Walls coming at you, you've got Bangalore Walls coming at you, the Crypt are first to make their move?
As long as they can control this left side of the rock, I like their chances. Make sure that the team on low ground has to walk out into the Catalyst Wall. It will be dropping soon. Less and less space available to the team that broke out the Catalyst Wall to start it all off. And Most Hated smoke out the high ground with the Digis. This is an excellent move for them, but they cannot afford to lose someone. Nastied with an excellent fry as well is going to keep the pressure on, and fortunately does not drop, but I spoke too soon, and Bangalore's on the ground. Most Hated are going to try and find this res, but it is in the midst of a lot of smoke, and they got to keep a whole squad at bay. No gold knockdown shield here. We've got the res having gone off. Another Catalyst Wall is going to buy them time, and Most Hated, they're chilling. Retired go down. They're cut off from the zone until the Catalyst Wall drops, and they get to farm the squad coming from the low ground. This win was handed to them, Tom.
Wow, that was an amazing reset to be able to engage and then back out. I know it wasn't planned that they lost that player, but that was the perfect way to lose focus there. It was almost like a bait and switch, like, yep, we're trading, come clean up, we'll back off, and then we'll just third you again when that fight is finished. That worked out absolutely perfectly, But the Crypt, I think, also made a good decision there to jump in. I don't think that they were able to win the game from their position, and I think that they'll be pleased to have at least got those kills. A little bit unlucky that the team was able to reset. They maybe could have won the game, but that is in a position where you should be winning the game from. So they'll take their KP, they'll take their second place, and they'll hopefully take a big jump up the leaderboard.
Yeah, it's looking like it. And you know what? I did see DigiVibes on Twitter earlier today, hoping that the caster curse was not going to haunt them. It appears at the very least that with a placement like that, their fate is securely in their own hands. And all the teams that made it to endgame can be really proud. You're definitely impressing, but most hated as well. One of the teams that we had predicted to do well on this map, absolutely showing up.
Yeah, I mean, that was just, what a game we've just had. That was one of the most exciting Stormpoint games that I've watched for some time. It just had so many different individual cat and mouse situations. But once again, teams like the Crypt that are those sort of like those sleeping giants on this map where that they can pop up and put a game together, and suddenly it's not the big names, not Dojo, not Dudes Night Out that have made the end game, and put points down. So it'll be interesting to see what's happened to that overall leaderboard.
Yeah, you've got a lot to look forward to as these teams that are on the board, because you need that #1 spot. Some people, it is their only way to qualify to the LCQ. But for a little bit more on last game, as we prepare to jump into game number 5, you know him, you love him. It's Standro, Mello, and Tenrek.
I don't know if they love me, but they at least know me. That is what's there. They know and love these two, though. Let's break down that game, boys, because that was just, I think, there's like a multi-phase. I feel like I was watching like Lord of the Rings, right? Like there was 3 different just large moments that I think we could talk about. I want to kick it off with you, Tenrek, when we kind of looked at sort of, zone 4 into zone 5, right? You had everybody that was in that area of the map that was kind of off kilter, and you had some people who were just fighting for high ground. You had this entire just vines and plant thing that was low of just everybody sitting on top of each other and just getting intertwined. To talk me through some of that play, because you were saying, I love how this map is playing out. It's exactly how I would want it to happen.
Yeah, trench circles have to be my favorite circles in the entire game, because the entire game shifts around how you don't go to where you need to go as much as possible. Trenches is such a vulnerable position, and it's all about what teams manage it and what teams choose to not. And the lion's share of them, obviously, chose to not. Sticking in checkpoint and relying on a migration that, like you said, had several phases that, again, I don't think any team wholeheartedly mismanaged. Everyone played their own role, got their own bit of progress along the way, but only a few managed to make it out of the woodwork and secure that victory and those solid placement points going forward.
Yeah, and I know one of those squads that kind of were able to make the reads and kind of play it correctly was, I believe, No Name. Mello, you were kind of praising them, saying, No Name played this perfectly. They were just, they had such foresight to be able to kind of maneuver their way into that zone correctly. Walk me through kind of what did they do correctly? Because, from what I understand, they kind of, okay, they're down there at 7th place, but still, I think it's important to note when we're here on our first map to be able to kind of, understand as we move forward.
And yeah, I guess I might have misspoken. No Name was definitely in a spot that was really strong, but most hated, I think, was the team that I was really referencing in terms of how they managed that, just because, I mean, again, a team that's willing to take fights, a team that's already shown that they can take fights against some of the best teams on the map in terms of 3v3s, but when they recognized where that zone was going, they took one of those early bunkers, or they could kind of do double duty, holding out teams out of the edge southwest of checkpoint, as well as staring at all of the action that was going on early over towards trenches. So the fact that they bided their time there, made sure that there was nothing getting wrapped around behind them, just holding out that edge, soaking up a lot of kills at the same time as well, which cannot be understated. The fact that they were there early but had the foresight as well as the proactivity to pick up kills while they were doing it, absolutely lovely. And as Tom broke down, not the position you would assume is that game-winning position, but that enemy catwall was the saving grace of that game. Even I couldn't believe that came down so perfectly for them to just snipe that game away. And you see it there, 11 kills and a 23-point game is nothing to scoff at.
And this is what we were really kind of curious about, right? I mean, when we look at some of those top teams that were that top 4 or 5 of the leaderboard overall before we moved into Stormpoint, not a lot of them are to be had and to be seen right here, right? And so I'm really curious to see, how does this shake up the overall standings? Most hated, one of those squads that's able just to kind of jump up and, well, okay, there we go. That's how we're seeing it shake up. They now jump to the top, and not just edging out one of those other teams, right? We saw Dojo and Dudes Night Out were slowly bringing their points up. Most hated comes in, slams it off the rip once we hit the storm point. I gotta also note TS Max, right? We've seen them. They've only got sort of 1 or 2 points in the last couple maps. So they came out with a bang, and guess what? It's kind of just fallen flat. So they need to pick it up here as we get ready to move into map 2. Beamers hanging on by a thread with the 31 points there. And, well, everybody's kind of sticking around the same side until we get down to, well, No Name in 10th, who kind of have that cliff at 22. So I think this just goes to show any one of these teams can have a banger map in these last 2 things here and be able just to kind of leapfrog on the leaderboard. I mean, Tenrek, what are we seeing here when we look at this? Anything surprising to you when we look at this overall standings?
I think out the gate, I have to say how well Dudes Night Out has been performing tonight. Even Pro League teams have trouble adjusting to the CC environment early on a lot of the time, and Dudes Night Out has been no different to an extent. Their World's Edge wasn't perfect, but this first game on Stormpoint showed a lot of prowess and a lot of potential in a team that, again, is clearly very experienced, very nuanced, very knowledgeable, and very good at thinking on their feet against teams that they may not have that much intel over, which is what separates CC from that PL. They've been adjusting really well, and it's showing not just that point tally that they look pretty solid in right now, but just how well they manage fights on a level with other teams where they are really untouched. Second in kills, second in points total. They're looking really solid going into the finality of tonight here, Dan.
Yeah, I love this sort of stat line that we have, because I think this really kind of tells the tale, right? If you look at average time survived or average placement, they're not doing great, right? 7th and 6th, okay, you're in the top 30% of the lobby, that's fine. But you can see when we look at the kills and average shots taken that it really kind of tells the story, because obviously being second with kills and just second in the average shots taken, they're not afraid to take these fights. They're not afraid to fly at some of these teams. Well, and as we know, the more kills and KP that you're getting, the more points that you're going to be putting up on the board. So it's this aggressive play style, I'm not surprised, is working out for them. But hey, we had one map on Stormpoint already. We saw some shakeups. We saw some teams playing it and just absolute insanely at the end. Let's see if map 2 has some similar things in store for us. Mello, Henrik, take it away.
Thanks so much, Dandro, and thank you, Tenrek, for joining me on what will be our final cast of year 3. It hurts so much to say it, but the journey so far has been nothing but excitement and truly a pleasure to see these players, these teams progress. But yeah, we are hopping in here. We will likely be tuning into that contest we saw over at Lightning Rod, which didn't go so hot for our, I guess, 20th place team, of course, who ended up going out first. Will they run it back here? This Mexican stack has been very dangerous on the map, and the contest is no different.
Yeah, it doesn't look like both teams will head there. Yeah, in fact, Lightning Rod will not even be taken up by... Wow, okay, so a complete shift in claims. That is very strange. I'm legitimately surprised by how quiet Lightning Rod is in the beginning of this game. But it just goes to show again how these teams really want to pull no punches. They want to maximize their points, especially as the numbers are starting to stare them right in the face. And so Pain and Suffering will get away with a little more loot here and a little more solace, which may suit them well, especially considering how far down they still are at the moment. A lot of work to do going forward, as they are currently in 18th. And they are one of the teams that has to win tonight in order to get a spot in that LCQ.
No Name has given up that Lightning Rod POI, but they are still lurking. They are still in the general vicinity. So we might be seeing a fight yet, because, of course, this side of the map, you tend to see the fighting there over towards that northeast pretty early. The IMC team generally ends up a good amount of the time taking the fight against whatever Lightning Rod team does end up being there. But it looks like they've actually soaked up the loot that's over to the east of Stormcatcher. So we'll see just how much loot they're actually working with. We'll see if they end up taking the fight over here to clear out this side of the map, as we see this ring pole pretty dang close to the middle of the map, which is Pumpkin Eater and Co.'s territory. In fact, I think this might be the exact ring that we saw them win a huge game on in Challenger Circuit number 3 finals, and I think they're taking the exact same spot. Donut Shop setting up with that Rampart. Oh, that's sick. This is a good bit of deja vu there. They won from this position. If I'm not mistaken, they took out Team Revenge in the last 3v3 to win that game. So, again, consistent game plans. They're not just true for World's Edge. They are back here in the exact same little tree fortress with Ashley Marie, or some of you might know him better as Mr. Oh gosh, I am just blanking right now. But in any case, know him as the Rampart. Know him as the stack that likes to play in the middle of zone. Fury, there we go. Finally came to me. Fury loves to play in zone, loves to be here early, loves to defend, loves to pressure all of the late rotations. And here they are doing it once again.
Something to note, Davis Wave apparently playing on MNK today instead of the roller that we tend to see this shotgun Jibby just absolutely destroy lobbies on. And I draw that as the sole reason why this team is in 17th place right now, and I will not be taking any criticism or pushback on that point. But it's now coming to that point where they do need to perform, and here's a circle that's being handed to them on a silver platter that says, here, perform. After watching Most Hated, the only team that can steal this first place seed in CC away from them, no matter how many teams from here make it to LCQ. And they are now starting to pull ahead, and they're doing it in a way that actually looked better than Donut Shop, in my opinion, in that game. They showed the ability to stiff-arm teams on their way to the specific prey that they wanted to pounce on. And with that point total, it's now showing that they would be willing to take on the entire lobby at once if they had to. But Donut Shop ready to take on the world and welcoming any comers with a hearty string of bullets. That's some good early damage done here by Ashley Marie in Fury in order to make sure that Donut Shop continue controlling this location, and it's done to Dude's Night Out.
Yeah, that's crazy. Another big threat off the map once again, sitting in that second place spot. They will not be picking up any more points in game number 5, which kind of opens the doors for teams like the Dojo and some of our other top 5 performers that are right up against that sort of cutoff to the top 3. Now, a lot of space, a lot of opportunity has been granted to these squads if they can have a solid game here. Checking in with Yur, though. They're going to start off their solid game with some aggression here. Pushing this team off of the bottom gondola building, and looks like they haven't seen very much resistance, so Yur will take control of this building. They might have had it already, to be fair, but they're one of the teams that might be pressuring Donut Shop a little bit here, might be fighting for that spot a little bit later on when those northern rotations start to crash, because while it might look solid and while, of course, you have that Rampart to set up a pretty solid defense, if enough teams start falling on your head, enough Horizon all start flying your way, I mean, not a whole lot you can do, and you can see that McLovin does have that Horizon ult in the back pocket, might be holding it for a better opportune moment to strike and to find their way into an endgame potentially.
Indeed, McLovin has arrived. Those with keen eyes may have noticed that Escape has been playing the first 4 games of today, as well as a solid amount of games for Yur in McLovin's stead over the past couple days. Escape, in fact, played a total of 13 games across this CC event and performed quite well across all of them, including in these past 4. So big shout out to Escape for stepping in and helping Yur out to secure a spot fully in this LCQ. But now we'll see if McLovin can bring Yur to an even better conclusion in these last 2 games on Stormpoint. Meanwhile, Redeem encountering a good amount of pushback themselves here in the center of the universe. We'll see what they do here. Z Davis's shield already burned away. They're going to try and take their time with this, but that just might be disallowed.
They have massive shield advantage. I think I saw a couple of whites or maybe a couple blues and a white on the other side. So Redeem very much looted up here and has early positioning. They want even better early positioning if they can get it, if they can fight for it. You can see on the scans there, at least one white shield still remains for this squad. And I believe they're looking down across at the Game 1 winners, who have been notably quiet here. I believe that is Beamers trying to defend.
Yes.
And Redeem has not been able to break this open quite yet. Again, patience, a little bit of reservation, not wanting to get knocked at any point lest they be third-partied by another team waiting in the wings, because this position, plenty juicy, definitely desirable. Redeem wants it. Redeem wants the kills, and they're just working this so surgically. The cat on the other side making this very difficult, but I want to say no caster curse pending. It's probably a matter of time, though. Paps eating a lot of damage. This team looking to get aggressive here.
Yeah, Beamers still looking inside, trying to find a way in. Like you said, Redeem playing it really well with this timing. And also, like you said, very susceptible to those third parties. Not just because this is a golden spot in this circle for a good while, but because teams already understand that and are here. Retired is watching from across the way, and Casellos will start to pounce. Redeem may just be crunched. Z Davis, the only one gone,
Wow.
and Redeem melted faster than I think either of us could have predicted, Mello.
And it's fast enough that they've picked up these shields as their prize for winning this one out. The Your third party is actually meeting a almost fully recovered squad here, and they're going to be punished almost immediately as well. McLovin has been thirsted. 2 blue shields left for the side of Your, and the likelihood of picking up this banner astronomically low, as they have gotten rid of the crypto that they've been running for so many games, not liking how it performed in the previous game, and now might be coming back to bite them. They've actually gotten away with it, though, so they've picked up that banner. Where they choose to stick it is an entirely different question of its own.
I mean,
but
they might as well do it right in front of them, considering
Hey.
they didn't see that, you know? Like, get away with it.
Worst case, they just lose another, right? They lose them again. They keep running this back. They'll find the next one. But all jokes aside, they are stabilized for the time being, and not a whole lot of teams to look their way for now. So might not be the worst opportunity to res, or they might bide their time, maybe find a mobile res beacon to maybe get a little bit more loot onto the side of McLovin, who has fallen. But we'll see yet another arrival, potentially, of Mr. McLovin as we proceed with the game. They're actually flying out towards zone. They're going to res right on top of this crafter, so maybe taking advantage to craft as well as this zone starts to close.
That's crazy, man. McLovin's going to arrive twice in one game. What a treat. 18 teams still going, and this circle still in its infancy. In all honesty, For Fun Gamer is going to take a fight that they don't like, aka with Dojo. But Chadamus Prime see that as an opportunity to pounce. They will try and take this 3P, or at least watch Dojo from far, as they will make their way back to the circle. They throw down this bang ult, and Dojo is just going to react by maybe throwing down this evac tower and trying to get out a different way, knowing that they cannot take this fight head on, especially with the health deficit. That's no doubt still shrinking here in Chadamus Prime's minds. They know the window of opportunity is quite slim, especially considering how far away the ring is anyway. And Dojo, again, have this evac tower. They very clearly could get out a different way if they want to, and looks like that's what they're going to try and do here. Maybe weave their way around and make sure that they still have all the advantages they need. They are fully kitted back up, and yeah, Chadamus Prime, they recognize that too much time has been spent. They have to at least back up just a little bit and give themselves a little more room, a couple more options, if they want to even think about facing this Dojo team, as proves to be, once again, too young of a game in order to really put pressure on.
This turns into a battle of attrition, which I think Chadamus Prime recognizes they might be on the losing end of. The Dojo did finish a fight here earlier, so does have more resources to loot up right now. You can see there, Timmy went from maybe 1 white med to 2 med kits and full stack of syringes, so they have more resources here to try and make this walk-in possible. It is ring 2, so it's not ticking as brutally as this upcoming ring, but it's starting to really drain out these resources, and that's really the inventory management game that Dojo are playing right now. So this next rotate, they're gonna have to get a long ways before they are safe from the wrath of the ring, and before they can count themselves having survived it. And there's still plenty of teams on this northern side that are more than willing to play spoiler on this walk-in. So Dojo still has quite a journey to make happen here in game number 5.
Yeah, still definitely a ways to go and a lot of game to burn. Same can be said on these other teams. Is Circle still having a lot of a brush around it. Teams taking their time, being a little more leisurely about the rotations because of how many of these cliff faces are kind of interlacing among them. You don't have too many ways in. I mean, TSMX is pretty walled out for all they know. They will not have much time to reapproach. And now that I believe that is Edition also down there, they're going to start getting crowded in this southwestern end. And of course, the northern migration that Dojo is heading up the pack for, as well as No Name coming from Stormcatcher. A lot of teams clearly waiting, watching, knowing that there are still a couple stragglers coming from the outskirts, but again, the power of those stragglers may not be well known considering how many fights these teams have already encountered. Pain and Suffering trying to do some gatekeeping of their own, watching the outskirts out here in the park. I believe they're looking at Most Hated down here. Down at this gate, and they're doing a pretty good job of holding it down so far, but again, they're right next to Edition, so they need to play it super safe.
Hey, listen, if they didn't get the contest over on Lightning Rod, looks like they want the run back anyway. Oh, they're slightly more looted. Yer has picked up McLovin, and McLovin has already dropped on the map with a knock. We're looking to be a kill here, but getting overzealous here, and Casellas and co have done so much damage to the squad from so far away. And suddenly they're down to just one. No Name also a bit in shambles. Not a whole lot of positioning left to play. They have to deal with whatever's sitting behind this tree, doing damage to them passively as they try and navigate this next walk-up. It's going to be the last member, I believe, Team Yer, who has been shoved towards the last little northern chunk of this side of the zone. No Name looking for the cleanup, having to commit this ultimate. every bit of artillery has been used at this point to try and clear this. It looks like Dojo's also part of this party, so maybe that ultimate seems a little bit less overkill now. Enemy with big sprays out of the Prowler. Not enough. No Name will stabilize, but the third party might be coming anyway.
Yeah, Beamers is keeping an eye on them, and here at the gate, TSMX has finally met everybody else. Crypt is also watching from the back, so they also may throw in the third party here. In fact, Dig Vibes is already getting in on the action, man. They just cannot stay away from it, can they? But stuck in this sandwich, KSR may also watch behind them too. There's still a lot of options for how these teams can slip up at the very last second. Instead, they will choose to head up and face off against Chadamus Prime. And, or excuse me, no, this is not Chadamus Prime. They're playing up against, who is this? Dude's Night, no. Viz & Co. Yeah, it's Viz & Co.
Viz & Co. showing up once again. They have a little bit more zone to be navigating of their own accord. KSR here setting up a very flimsy and temporary fortress with these walls. And it is one of those moments where you got to wonder how you're able to play so out in the open. But there's no other teams that can really look their way. No one's really willing to peek. 10 squads left. This is a notably empty zone, and it might be getting emptier here as Viz & Co realizes just how bad that positioning really is. They're going to lose Crozjo on the engage. And this is an absolute must cleanup, in my opinion. Crozjo just getting thirsted. There will be a shield swap there. Viz & Co still has not finished this one off. The shots coming out from Oi Senpai to try and make it happen. But this is taking so long, and Ring 4 is closing 10 Rick, so might be do or die here to at least get the 3 KP that seems rightfully theirs.
Yeah, Crypt looks tempted to try and take on this as well instead. While FSQ, meanwhile, tries to head down to where Donut Shop has been holding up this entire time. They will not be met super kindly, but my goodness, what an initial burn from Frosty. That's an opening statement if I've ever seen one. And in they trollops to this circle. They can have as much control as they want to. They can fight as much as they want to here. The question is, with how much they've already committed, just how aggressive do they want to continue being from here?
No Name does not manage to fight their way into zone. They will be eliminated in 9th place. FSQ trying to do everything they can to pressure. They're relatively safe right now, but if they get overzealous, they could be the next ones to fall. Frosty down so low, about 25 HP left on that ticker there. Get a moment to stabilize. No push will come to shove quite yet. Frosty still hasn't gotten this bat off, and now the ultimate is there. A beautiful black hole there to open up the damage for QZZ, but the trades there are massive. And I think Donut Shop has decided to take a little bit more action here in the zone. They've held off for long enough. Now is their moment to pick up this KP. They've walked forward. Ashley Marie, the only one damaged right now. J-Trips with that package weapon there in the L-Star, just blasting through these squads. They've lost Ashley Marie, but they have the bubble there. They will stabilize, and this is a big start to Donut Shop's endgame.
TS Max falling after FSQ get out and are met by the Crypt as well. The Donut Shop, the only team to walk out of that northern side, and they remain alive. One of 4 teams remaining. It's them, the remnants of Vysenko, the Crypt who is trying to finish those off, and Beamers once again sitting pretty, all smiles on the southern edge of this circle, looking for another clean getaway of a game, but their rotation has to be solid, and the Crypt can't stare at them too much, but Dig Vibes is already itching to start a fight up there too. Meanwhile, Donut Shop will get the finisher, and we're down to our final 3 stacks.
And as I mentioned earlier, this is an end zone that Donut Shop has already won in a Challenger Circuit final. Very similar positioning here. They've got 2 package weapons to work with, which I think they had a Kraber in their hands last time as well. So the deja vu continues, but the pressure from the Crypt is here. The Crypt has been in every single CC final, so they are no strangers to these end games. And we've been waiting for that pop-off moment from the Crypt. Dig Vibes is looking for a dub here. They want it oh so bad. They have the tools to do it as well. They have ultimates in their back pockets, and all they have to do is take down the back-to-back winners of Challenger Circuit's finals here in a Donut Shop, as well as no slouches by any means over on the southeast in Beamers.
As they prep for the ascent, Donut Shop will poke their heads out first. Davis Wave trying to find the opening damage. As the rampart walls get set up, the bunker is forming, and time is running out. Crypt, a second consecutive top 3 performance for them. Trying to make it a second top 2 and trying to make win of the night. Donut Shop trying to do the same thing. How crazy is it that we have to say that tonight? But they want this top spot, and they want it bad, considering that Most Hated is trying to challenge them for the CC crown. After all the work they have done, they do not want to let go of the top. But Beamers and Crypt still have quite a bit to say, and they can all do it from a distance, shouting bullets from a this circles them unknown.
Here we go. We still have Beamers trying to hold on to the last scraps of cover that they have left to play. This heady is dangerous, but there is no damage being ceded by the side of Donut Shop. Donut Shop has fully set up here with the rampart as well. The Crypt going to run out of space very quickly as well, and there really isn't anywhere left for Beamers to look. They've gotten up to their 3rd red shield, but they are going to be the ones that have to walk out, and where they commit this catwall is going to make all the difference with who wins this game. It looks like it might be Donut Shop that's going to get the better end of this. They've committed this wall. They've looked over towards Crypt. This fight will be Crypt versus Beamers, and it's for 2nd place, and Donut Shop just gets to lick their lips and watch as potentially another Challenger Circuit final lobby win is coming their way, but it is not over. It is far from over, in fact, and here we go, the last few moments of game number 5.
Crypt threw up their Dark Veil at the same time too, so they're able to stall against Donut Shop as well. Akimbo the first to fall, and Beamers stuck between a rock and a hard place a little too early on in this fight, but now Donut Shop is going to choose to pounce on the Crypt first instead, and they'll do it in beautiful fashion, throwing down all the ults, and the Crypt eliminated in one fell swoop. Donut Shop come in and scoop up the rest as well. Who wants to play for 2nd? Absolutely no one, because Donut Shop is just playing for 1st. Welcome back, guys.
Oh, And I'm so glad to see that it's a zone that they've won before. Going back to knowing your game plan, going back to understanding your macro, your win conditions. If there's a team that knows exactly how to do that, it is Donut Shop. Notably quiet throughout this Challenger Circuit final, but they needed to tack on at least one more in the win column before they get sent off to that LCQ. So beautiful stuff from them. Lovely play throughout. And yeah, again, that nail in the coffin there was the commit from from Beamers, excuse me, that allowed them to just sit and watch as the crypt ended up falling to them as well. So exactly how you want to play that zone. Masterclass there on playing that, and very much a deserved win for them.
Yeah, the teams placed in the very same position as us and you all in the audience of just bearing witness to Donut Shop. Sometimes that's just how it is, but there is still probably work to be done. This leaderboard has gotten shaken up just a little bit more. Of course, Mello, this is, like you said, you and I's last time getting to cast for year 3, and I'm so happy to get to do it with you one last time in the booth. And of course, to everyone watching throughout these CCs, thank you so much for letting me personally come on and help out with the split this time around. It's been truly an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be sending you back over for the last game of the Challenger Circuit for year number 3. It's been an absolute pleasure. I cannot state enough just how glad I've been just helping out and being a part of this journey. So without further ado, Dandro, take it away.
Hey, let's get some claps going in the chat for our boys Mello and Tenric. It's been amazing to be able to work with them throughout, obviously, this entire Challengers Circuit. We can't thank them enough for their passion that brings them here and always kind of bringing a fresh new look at Apex. So thank you, boys, for bringing up that game number 5. But hey, we got one other duo that's still ready to go and ready to bring the energy. Dia and Tom here. Game number 5. Man, I don't know what to say about it besides the fact that I'm feeling hungry because apparently the Donut Shop is open. I could go for a Boston cream myself. It's not a Challenger Circuit, right? At least this year, until Donut Shop kind of turns up. Dia, walk me through what kind of let Donut Shop come online in that game, because seemingly, you were kind of mentioning, you're like, I'm pretty sure they won this exact same zone like in week 3 when they were going on their dominance run.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's exactly what I was going to say. It was, well, Tenric and Mello were discussing I think they've actually been here before. I was like, yep, they've been exactly in this position, and they've won exactly this zone. They knew what was coming, and the beautiful part about this zone for Donut Shop and the way they like to play it is that position is absolutely terrible. If you don't have Rampart Gibraltar, who wants to be playing on this weird, awkward hill? Absolutely nobody. And it was that let them just farm the... Tom, am I missing something?
No, you're not. I mean, it's just the perfect spot for this zone, and I thought it was so interesting. All 3 teams showed us just how unplayable most of this zone was by all just cowering in their corners.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the Crypt just got absolutely worked. Everybody just kind of went, no, they're going to die now. And just absolutely just descended on them. I think maybe they used their catwall a little bit too early. Maybe they made themselves a bit of a target. I think things were kind of going the way they wanted. But, they're still... As we can see with the leaderboard here, they still posted some decent points there, and they'll be pretty happy with that game still.
Yeah, and the one thing I look at this, right, we saw it after map number 1 where it was most hated. They had that really fantastic game, and they kind of leapfrogged on the leaderboard. Donut Shop kind of following up as well, right? They're dropping this 12 KP. They take that 12 placement points, and they're dropping 24 in this one game. And besides that, I mean, you got Beamers who, in the first kind of part of the map set, they were on fire. They were doing pretty good, but have since kind of slowed down a little bit. But it seems like they're picking up some momentum. 17 total points there. The Crypt, they were able to get the 3rd, of course, with those 5 eliminations, and are able to get here. But I'm kind of looking, there's kind of a drop off, right? I mean, FSQ, you saw them sort of in that end game. They had 7 kills total. They were able to play kind of underneath that rock and get there, but nobody else really kind of coming online. I mean, we got the Dojo, who sure, they grabbed their 6 KP, but when you're all the way down in 14th, it's hard to really kind of maintain that total sort of position that's there. So I'll be really curious how this does impact our overall leaderboard that's there. I mean, Oh, and we have it. Great. Thank you, production. We have some amazing people behind the scenes. Look at this. We got Most Hated sitting at the top, 56 still. Beamers, though, are now back in the running, 48, not too far behind. And you can see the rest of those kind of scores there. Dia, when we take a look at this score, overall, what's kind of shaking up to you? We're getting ready to go into the last final map. I mean, who are the teams that you're looking that really got to do something special here?
Whenever we're going into a game 6 and I'm taking a look at the leaderboard overall before going into it, I'm just trying to figure out how far down is reasonable to still find a win. And the reality is 16 points of difference with where the Crypt are at, still absolutely doable. Most Hated have done a lot of work to get to the top spot, but we could even drop down a little bit further, perhaps even to Dude's Night Out, and say that with a convincing win, they can take the top spot. So all the way down to 7th, still absolutely has a shot of taking this and qualifying themselves. We know this would mean a lot to them, picking the first place spot up. But Beamers, the Crypt, Donut Shop for the three-peat would all be very exciting to come out and win this one.
And Tom, when we kind of look from those first top 7 teams, I mean, who's kind of been jumping out to you as really the squad that maybe can lock it in, right? I mean, obviously they've all done pretty well, but when it kind of comes do or die moment, who do you think is the team that's going to really be able to play the game well and be able to do what they need to do to get both KP and also that solid placement?
I think look, you have to say all the teams in this position are obviously all very talented. That's such a politician's answer. But I think the Dojo have it in their locker to drop an absolute nuke because of the talent they have on their team. But the question is can they make the right decisions early on in the game to take the fights that are going to allow them to drop that nuke? Or are they going to, like we've just seen them do, just pick up some kills, but in a way that means they don't make it to the end game? But I think if a team was going to drop like a 25-point plus sort of absolute, uber nuke, it's going to be Dojo, I think. Probably Dude's Night Out. Also, I think Dia's right to mention them that they probably have that uber nuke in their locker. But for them, even an uber nuke, how many times can I say that in one sentence, is probably might not even be enough, right? Because it would only take a 5 or 6 point game from a couple of teams above them, and then that gap gets a bit too big. So, look, game 6, it's all to play for. How many uber nukes are we going to see?
Hey, I love it. We have game 6. The map is loaded in. The players are getting there. In the words of Tom Apex, let's see who's dropping the uber nuke, who is maybe skyrocketing their way to the top of the leaderboard, or who was just grabbing that LCQ spot. Dia, Tom, take it away. Bring us on home.
This is the emotional part of it for me, Tom, because as we get into the last game of the day, it's also the last game of the Challenger Circuit this year. So many seasons for individual teams end right here. This is it. And not just for those people who are in this lobby, but who have fallen along the way in Challenger Circuit, not able to make it up to even a dream of LCQ qualification. And that's what I love about the Challenger Circuit, is how much passion the teams put into it. It hurts me to say goodbye to them, but I cannot wait to see how the last game plays out, as we got another hot drop on our hands.
Wow, yeah, we are absolutely still fighting over Lightning Rod. You didn't have to talk about the teams that didn't make it. You're making me a little bit personal. I'm kind of hurt. I'm feeling sad. What am I going to do with my life for the next 5 months when there's no Challenger Circuit to suck in? But, yeah, I mean, look, we're fighting again. No Name, they're one of those teams. They need some points. They, have to win this contest. They have to. If they go out early here, they're opening the door for another team. There's so much pressure on this early game drop. And, how much of that is going to be decided by literally what the game has chosen to spawn in these 2 buildings at the bottom of Lightning Rod. This is an absolutely huge moment for our final game of the Challenger Circuit in Year 3.
Now, in contrast to last game, No Name have opted to play the low ground, Pain and Suffering, with a bit of an inherent advantage here. No Name have a little more loot, but Pain and Suffering, they're down a player. This is a big problem, as Chickus has retaken to the high ground using the Horizon, and is now back on the ground. Purple Mag on the Volt as well is going to feel especially good, but Catalyst Difference early on may allow for a quick reset. No Name need to finish this squad, and they need to do it yesterday. Down goes the door, insta-reinforce. No Name, they're being kept on their toes. Pain and Suffering are putting up the defense of the ages.
I mean, look, Catalyst absolutely so valuable in these early game fights, being able to take control of doorways, being able to reinforce doorways, so important. You can really stall for days because teams don't have a lot of grenades at this point in the game. They haven't been able to loot. They barely have anything in their backpack, so it's so hard to breach a building. How long can they suffer inside this building though? We'll wait and see.
It's just a matter of time. No Name are going to go for the triple rush. They move around the Catalyst spikes. The Ferrofluid doing nothing. And pain and suffering will they experience a little bit more. 20th place. They go down. And Tom, their season is over.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real rough way to end your season. But, you know, they've made a final. They'll probably be happy with that. And, you know, they'll be talking about how they're going to move on now to whatever comes next in the Challenger Circuit. You know, moving on into hopefully a year 4. But No Name there, one of those teams that they're in that middle of the pack. That's huge because they've won their contest. They can now move on. And maybe they're going to take points away from a team that just needs it to sneak into the top of, you know, sneak into those LCQ points. You know, those teams in the middle of the pack, every single place completely changes the arithmetic of, you know, who is going to make LCQ after we know who has locked down their champ spot. There's so much up in the air right now.
That's exactly what you came in to do today. Just mess with the algorithm. See what sort of chaos they could cause, and they're already doing it. Having started a fight in probably the hottest spot to drop if you're ever in a normal or even ranked game, you have chosen violence in this round, but Kate is going to draw first blood with McLovin on this horizon, vulnerable. The rest of the team is going to be exposed as well, and it's just up to Crypto to play defense for the squad. Drone now down. We've got just a little while until this team crests over the side. It's going to be 2 downs, and they are gone. Crypto or not, it's time to head for the hills, and I don't even know if you touched the ground.
Yeah, McLovin has arrived, but McLovin hasn't quite shown up. Unfortunate then. Team Yer, they're in the LCQ. They've already qualified. They're probably giggling. They don't really care. But, you know, they're one of those teams that now a window of opportunity has opened up again for teams to take points and to climb their way up. Every single elimination, every single team that gets knocked out completely just throws all the cards up in the air again this game. I mean, if you're tracking these numbers at home, I don't know how you're doing it because there are so many variables.
KSR here to mitigate as much as they can in terms of those variables because they're running Rampart, Loba, and have the next zone scan. You know what the game plan's going to be from here on out. They have rotated in early to a place that is real difficult to push. They're putting up walls and making sure they got loot. The game plan is not complicated to figure out, and it's going to be something that a lot of teams are trying to emulate. Unfortunately, not everybody's going to be able to do it, because with FSQ missing a member, you've got limited options.
Yeah, KSR, one of those teams that were kind of likely to qualify for the LCQ based on the points they had before today started, so I think it's no surprise to see them playing that way and really just, you know, locking it in. They just need to not have a stinker today, basically, and, you know, so far, they are doing a really good job about that. You know, they're sitting in that middle of the pack in 8th place right now, heading into the last game. So they just need to, you know, just put a few points down on the board. It doesn't have to be an uber nuke game. So, you know, they are absolutely doing the right things and putting themselves in a fantastic position.
When you say uber nuke, like, and you think about it in your head, do you have the umlaut, or is it just a U?
I think it has the umlaut because it's a smiley face because you're absolutely just doing the worm that you just got like 15 kills. So I think it has to be a smiley uber.
Not I hesitate to even call it an umlaut at that point. I think it's just the smiley face. You could even do the like colon close parentheses nuke. Nuke
yeah, maybe. Hold on, I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt and sell it. See you all at Atlanta.
I mean, if they let you get on the plane there, then absolutely.
Yeah, true. I have 100 t-shirts with the word Uber Nuke written in my suitcase. Nothing to see here, officer.
I don't think it's going well, honestly. But, you know what? These teams would surely be excited to pick up one of those shirts if the Uber Nuke is what gets them to the finale. And Dojo absolutely need to drop one there. One of the teams that, as you said, has the potential to do so, and we've known it since we saw their names qualifying for the finals today. Honestly, since they signed up for the Challenger Circuit. But with an evac tower now on the high ground, they're still going to have to bypass a lot of, well, difficulty on their way down, because there is not a lot of space to play, whether it be up here on the high ground or on the low. They've opted into the command center rotation, one that may very well have some danger ahead.
Yeah, and this is where they're really going to rely on the experience of Designful, because they're under pressure. They know that if they really want to lock in that LCQ spot, they have to win. But sometimes that can be pressure, right? You don't want to force it. You don't want to take an engagement that is too early, or you're going to get third-partied. So they're really going to need that experience, because I think something that previous iterations of the Dojo roster has lacked has just been that little bit of sort of like battle hardiness to know when not to push something. They know they're better than most people in the lobby, but sometimes that can be almost a negative, because too much ego, too much confidence can be a downfall, because it only takes one clip or a lucky grenade or a charge rifle across the map, and suddenly you're a player down and you're getting third-partied. So it'll be interesting to see how Design sort of steers them through this final game.
Especially in lobbies like this, when everybody is looking at you. You said charge rifle in the back, and it just spoke to me, and spoke to likely so many teams here. The Dojo this time, though, do have an isolated 3v3. You got to be careful of the lucky nades, but in a case like this, when you control the tunnels, Dojo felt pretty good about it, and I think fortunately enough, the team below has chosen to disengage.
Exactly, and this is that experience coming through, where they took that evac tower, they had two routes. They took a route that is either going to give them high ground and a free rotate out, or an isolated fight. You're not getting charge rifled inside there. As you can see, looking at the map here, there's only one team around. So, that experience really shining through.
This exit, though, definitely worrying me. DNO are waiting on the low ground on the exit of the gravity cannon. Redeem also in a tight spot right now, have Z Davis on the ground, and they're going to go for the push, perhaps trying to change with the unexpected. It's a nicely placed arc star out of Dalton, who takes the wide swing. This should work for Redeem. Paps almost goes down, but instead, they manage to clutch it up, and it's a big change as FSQ are taken down.
Yeah, I mean, Redeem have been fighting so well today in those clutch situations, but the question is now, can they hold off that third party, or have they essentially had the game entered there by having to take a fight too early? TS Mechs are definitely going to have something to say about that.
Ditchies through this, but somehow it does not matter. There is some disgusting things being done by TS Mechs right now, and they weren't able to get Z Davis up on the inside either, so it should be the 1 versus 2, something that Redeem should be looking not to take. Remember that they do have some other options. With a Jibby on their squad, they could have disengaged, they could have tried, but unfortunately, that's it. Redeem are out, and they will not be taking the last game of the Challenger Circuit in Year 3.
I'm just looking over at the map here, and everybody is calling the zone wrong. People are too far north, and I fear that we might be having one of our extinction events again very, very soon, because there is so many people who are just slightly out of the zone. There is not one full team in the zone. Maybe Team Revenge, or maybe just, dancing in and out there. So this is going to create absolute carnage, as all these teams on the south and all these teams on the north have to fight their way in later on. But teams like Visenko aren't worried about that, because they are just mowing through people as they move in.
Yeah, this is not a game of pacifism for them, not by a long shot. Crow can be sliding up and down the river, ultimately disengaging, but you're seeing the kill feed. Donut Shop are suffering losses, not looking like they're going to be replicating that top finish that they had last game. We'll find out what the future has in store for them as Visenko get to move on forward into the better part of this zone. They actually have the scan on the next ring, and will be avoiding that mass exodus that you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, they have actually a really, really clean and isolated rotate into zone now. And that's going to, put them in a really, really strong position here, as we see Most Hated also having to take an early game engagement outside the zone.
Awope, the wall is just eating his bullets, and it's really not doing Most Hated any favors. They've now entered this fight, or rather the latter part of it, with very few shields, had to take a late reset, given time for the rampart walls to be set up on the inside, and with no digis, this push is extraordinarily difficult. Most Hated floundering for a way up, with Laser getting the shields ripped off of him one more time. Most Hated are finally going to take to the roof, at least Laser is, and I'd like to see somebody join him, because it doesn't look like you're getting a lot done on the inside.
Yeah, and it looks like Visenko have decided not to make their rotate and not to have that free walk into zone, and instead are looking to get involved in this fight and in this engagement, but Most Hated backing off, and there's almost a foot race now towards zone as these teams all now have to try and get back around. They decided they can't make any further this way, so how quickly can they get through past this gravity cannon into the south side of where our zone is pulling?
1 minute left, and evac tower off in the distance. No bait going to be taken there, however, as Laser does not get the incredible beam that he was fishing for on the way up. Instead, looking at where the zone is pulling. We got to focus on who's actually made it here. Interestingly enough, Donut Shop technically have being able to grab themselves a spot, but KSR are bunkered into a corner on the low ground. Not a great position, but if they can avoid being taken down from above, it's a survivable one.
Yeah, and I think that, you can see Dojo still in command center. Look at just how many teams have to move into a position. I think there's probably room for 1 or 2 more teams on the east. There's going to be a team that's going to come in, from the north down south, and then a team is going to end up playing that spider choke as well. You see the Crypt also making their move, probably with an evac tower. So, this is a blink and you miss it kind of situation. There are a few spots available right now, but everybody wants them. Who is going to go first?
Cryptid duo right now landing on the low ground, because I think that was spotted. TS Mex would have absolutely noticed him. With KSR right next to him, there's not a lot of forgiveness in this corner. Vera fortunately has the gold shield to be able to heal up just a bit, and they're avoiding this Bangalore ult by mere millimeters. KSR trying to put down some pressure, but through the smoke it is just impossible to do.
Yeah, it looks like Slater potentially got clipped off the evac tower, obviously just slightly behind his 2 teammates, just got taken out before he could commit to that rotate, and now Crypto just in a really, really difficult situation, barely any space to play with. But their saving grace here might be that other teams are going to start to interfere as well.
I'm looking at TS Max, or rather, I'm looking in the direction of TS Max and going, where are these shots coming from? Because Cape is just chewing through the crypt right now when there should be a little bit of relief, and understandably, perhaps some focus is going up to the high ground where we are starting to get that carnage that you talked about earlier. Teams trying now to finally make their way out of Stormcatcher and just being a little bit late on the pickup. Team Revenge actually going to be put back as Dudes Night Out, who have alley-ooped the wall, actually have an amazing angle. Koifel is putting down so much damage. No Name go down. Dude's Night Out continue to play off of the low ground against Revenge, and Koifel's going to be able to pop the bat, drop down out of the sky, and God knows where he's going to end up. Drops down, fries Carlin as expected, and Dude's Night Out get to turn their attention forward.
What great use of Horizon there to pop a heal by queuing up into the tree. You just simply cannot be seen. You are one with the leaves. You are just a mere fruit hanging from that tree, but nobody can grab you, nobody can reach you. And of course, what's the first thing Koifel's going to do when he plants his 2 feet firmly on the ground? It's just one-clip someone, just casually. He is an absolute machine. He is an Uber nuke. He is an individual Uber nuke, that player.
I mean, that's why you pick him up, just so you can drop him on somebody. And now with the Dojo owning the high ground, you know what kind of trouble you're in on the low, because Dude's Night Out have an amazing position there. Donut Shop going to go down, as are Chatamus Prime and Retired. Just like that, Tom. It is just that third ring close, but we got 11 squads left.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just looking at the map, and there's a couple of teams who are currently between DNO and the Dojo. Is that a spot you would want to be? Would you want to be looking left and seeing Lou, Koifel, and Duplex, or looking right and seeing Designful, It's Timmy, and Enemy? I think that would be keeping me up at night, so it'd be interesting to see if DNO and Dojo both end up fighting up in the north. But down in the south, we've also got another little cluster of teams, and there's still, plenty of open routes into zone, but there's only really one team able to do it from both directions, and which team is going to win the battle of the rotates here on either side of the zone?
Zinko actually in a pretty decent position, trying to fuse the teams below them, force a corner of territory for themselves. These rocks are going to be playable. We look back at the Dojo, though, and as a reminder, DNO still absolutely on the other side of this hill. Dojo are going to start sending it down with relatively little cover. They do have the Bangalore smokes on demand. Well, on the opposite end of this, they're actually going to be continuing to farm up kills. got a crypto ult that's, rather not crypto ult, a seer ult that's gone off, and the beamers go down in the meanwhile. Addition going to be right alongside them. That was disgusting beamage from Timmy. He's going to pop around here, finish the kill along with enemy as J-Dot hits the floor. 8 teams left, and it looks like we're going to make it 7 pretty darn soon because the Dojo have chosen violence.
I mean, is there a scarier sight in Apex Legends than it's Timmy on Bangalore with a Digi sliding down at you at max speed from one of the longest hills on Stormpoint? That is absolutely terrifying. And the Dojo are on that rampage, and they have made it towards the end game here, and they've earned themselves the space to fight. And Dudes Night Out are out. This could be Dojo's tournament to win if they can pick up a lot of kills in the end game.
And that was it. It was the smoke, literally the smoke from Timmy that took down Dudes Night Out, putting us to 6 squads. 6 teams left that can win our final game, and in one of the most awkward positions to do it as well. TS Mex, who have shown up to nearly every challenger circuit so far, are in the conversation, and they've just taken a loss. Jomax, incredibly vulnerable on the floor. Viz and Co know exactly what's going on here. They want to push the numbers advantage, but they get shot from afar. Lily goes down, but Viz and Co still winning the fight. Behind this rock, they've got a little bit of cover to work with. Oi Senpai takes a quick reset, and they've got to fend off the last member of TS Mex, who's trying to climb on them. The crack comes through from Oi Senpai. He's got to take another shield bat, and TS Mex go down. A little bit of mercy granted to them by enemy.
And the question is now, can they get Lily back up? Can they reset in time to move into the zone? It's going to be close because that zone is now almost about to start moving. They have barely any space, but Dojo didn't push on them. Dojo are waiting. Dojo are biding their time. They are keeping space. Look how much control they have over the map right now. Spread out all across the top side of this zone, and they are just walking their way in. Picking up the kills now. It's a more advantageous time to do so.
Viz and Co have chosen the path of the Dojo, though, and I think they've got Shafir. Designful gonna try and take to the skies, ends up making it as he burns through Lily with the help of enemy. That's 2 down, and Viz and Co crippled now, have to sit back as the Catalyst wall does separate the fight for just a moment, giving the Dojo time to take the high ground. They've got a Wope on a flank that they do have to be careful about, but right now they are abusing KSR. Timmy going low, manages to disengage. 4 squads left.
Yeah, this is absolutely a huge moment here. So the enemy absolutely doing work there. They have at least 6 kills so far. The Dojo are on track to put down a huge game, but the question is, can they execute this final game? They are the only team that is going to be aggressing. We have a team literally 3 deep in a corner. We have a duo. We have a solo. Can they execute this? Can they dance around the other teams? We are into a top 3 situation here. This could be the Dojo's chance to steal that spot in the LCQ.
Most Hated have made it to this top 3. Just as a duo, the points are going to be really close, and you cannot allow this squad to get second if you want a prayer of taking away their first place position. Both teams, all 3 teams, hungry for the glorious finish. You want to be the winner of the final game, to stamp your mark on history. And with KSR playing this low ground, being unpushable in this situation with so many rampart walls, it's going to come down to the final circle. It's going to come down to the last seconds of Exodus.
Yeah, this is a real tricky game of chess here, because if the Dojo overcommit on either of these 2 teams, that gives the other team the opportunity to jump in and third-party them. And, there's so much stall potential here. You've got a duo on the other side of the zone. You'd have to cross so far to fight them. But then the team directly in your path literally is built just to sit in a corner and delay you, and that's not even taking into account what could happen if a Sheila gets pulled down.
Enemy is just disgusting. I have no idea how anybody is alive after that. The Arcstar actually may very well change it. KSR still somehow up on slivers of HP and still with time to heal as Dojo do their thing, getting ready for the final zone. Can they actually bring everyone to this end game? Can they survive as a 3-man roster? In comes the flank, but Designful, well, he is famous for a reason. Ends up turning around and beaming Cape. That's one down, and the Dojo start their rampage. They begin the drop, as now they have this entire corner of the map to themselves. They are the ones with cover for Maul. 3 squads left, and we've got trades. Relay is down. Enemy still turns around, but gets fried right back. Awoke taking him down. The Dojo have just Timmy left to represent, and he plays defense up on the high ground to glorious fashion, gets a shield swap, and is still continuing the fight for the win. Timmy might just do it, and Timmy clutches the last game. He drops Uber Nuke and takes the last game of Challenger Circuit.
It's Timmy. He has arrived. We've had some very underwhelming Challenger Circuit performances, but now he is showing up. That is what he is capable of. That was absolutely perfect play. That whole game. Patience, execution, aggression when it matters most. Absolutely unbelievable. But the question is, dear, is it enough? Is that going to be enough? Have they dropped the Uber Nuke? Is the Uber Nuke a big enough size for them to steal first place? Because, of course, there's other teams that picked up points as well. So it's all going to come down to exactly what has happened in that endgame. But, I mean, wow. What a way to end the Challenger Circuit in year 3. What a moment.
Let's bring Dandro back in, because my heart is still going too fast to actually lead the conversation. And Dandro, I need you to point me in a direction and just let me run with it, because what an incredible finish that end game was. Is your heart okay? You doing all right?
What did I just watch, dude? Oh my God! The dojo is open and accepting new students, because that's basically what I just saw. What a fantastic end game by them. We were saying, right? We're gonna say it some more. They needed the Uber Nuke in order to be able to claim that first place spot, and I'm right there with you, boys. I'm really just looking forward to see how did the standings shake out after that. But let's kind of roll it on back. So we got to talk about that map overall. Okay. Tom, you said sort of towards the beginning of the game that I thought was really, really interesting. And I want to kind of get your idea of how it sort of played out. You said everybody is calling this zone wrong. You said they're just completely going in a different area of the map. You know, I think it's actually going to go a little bit more north, I think is what you said, or they're going to north. For what's there. Explain to me a little bit about how did that maybe impact how we watch the map kind of turn out?
Yeah, so I think, you know, look, zones are really hard to predict at the moment, and that zone in particular isn't really a zone where you can set up inside it. But there were so many teams clustered at the north and at the south. What it means is that when that zone has to move, it is just carnage. It is a who blinks first. It is who has picked a Valk, who has picked a Gibby. You know, we even saw teams like they tried to bluff that UVAC tower, but Slater was just a couple of seconds behind, and then he gets clipped taking the tower, and then that's the Crips game basically over because they're a duo. It means absolute carnage. But I tell you what, it was perfect for teams like Dojo, who were in control. They were so far north, they were up there, you know, in command center for so long that they were the last team. They just they were the predator shark, right? They were just, you know, behind the shoal, picking people off. The teams that, you know, were stragglers. Dudes Night Out kind of took the other lane, and those two teams, you know, managed to both work their way down the hill without fighting each other. And that was just, you know, pure carnage. So many teams in that situation. It just, you know, it's impossible for everybody to get out without fighting each other.
And Dia, I want to get your ideas on this, because I think Tom said it best, that it was just a map of carnage, right? I mean, we hit the end of Zone 3 with just 11 squads remaining, and then I think very quickly, even that just dropped out of nowhere. What do you attribute to that as we kind of look at some of the scores here? You know what? Forget that question. I want to take a look at this. Dia, 13 kills. The placement points, 25. That's looking spicy. That's looking good.
I can do the math. Like, I can do the math right now, and I'm trying to stop my brain from doing it because I have all the numbers written down. I'm covering my sheet of paper. I want to let the overall leaderboards speak for themselves, as Dojo so notably did. But let it not take away. Whether the Dojo or Most Hated come out on top, both have absolutely earned their positions. And Dojo, it was a long time coming to finally see its team clutch it up. Last game of Challenger Circuit was the conclusion to what I've been waiting for out of this roster for ages. Every Challenger Circuit, this man shows up, and every Challenger Circuit, I think he's locked it in. The Dojo in this fourth Challenger Circuit was the pinnacle of year 3 for the roster, and it's no matter where they end, it's deserved.
Well, I believe we do have our overall leaderboard, so let's not waste any time. Let's come on in. Let's see, was that game enough? It wasn't by 2 points. Most hated snag that first place position by 2 points over the Dojo, securing themselves that spot in the last chance qualifier. Now, I want to give some respect to some of the other teams not too far behind them. We have Beamers and TS Mechs, and we have Dudes Night Out in that 5th spot with 45. But man, by 2 points, that's just 2 kills over those other of the total 6 games, man. I mean, whoo, Tom. I mean, where do you think? Was there anything they could have done, or was that just most hated being the more consistent team?
I tell you what that comes down to, because if you go back to our placement points,
thank you.
3rd place is 7, 2nd place is 9. That literally comes down to, in that absolute, ring around the wall and tree, that end fight, because most hated were able to stay alive and take that 2nd place instead of 3rd. That is why they have locked their spot in the LCQ guaranteed, and that is why the Dojo have missed out. It is not the fact that they won that game, it is they killed the enemies in the wrong order there. That is so unfortunate. Of course, there's 5 other games you could find 2 points very easily, and those are the games. But in that last second situation, being able to survive at the bottom of the zone, being able to just play as a duo, to play small, and then go big at the end and be aggressive and not get picked on, and to really force the Dojo to fight the other team first, that is what secured them that spot, and they deserve that so much.
I mean, and look at these stats from most hated, right? I mean, obviously, having those 2nd place kind of points in the kills, damage dealt, and average time survived says a lot. But the fact that they were able to take those large number of eliminations they had and then convert it, obviously, into the placement is what's going to get them there. Being first in that average placement, I think, really kind of says a lot, right? You can get all of the eliminations you want, but to be able to kind of convert those into placement, that's what we like to see from some of these squads. And I'm so happy you kind of brought that up, that it was just basically the fight choice at the very end there. I mean, we can obviously look at a lot of the other maps as well, and there's probably moments that we can attribute it to, right? There was that one game where I think they came in they were 15th, right? But they still had 6 or 7 eliminations to their name. It's like, okay, get some placement points there, and now you're top of the boards. That's right. So heartbreaking for the Dojo, but we also have to give some credit to most hated as well for being able to kind of finesse that at the top. But what an insane day of Challenger Circuit, boys. I mean, we just had 6 absolute maps. I think today, the one thing that stuck out to me is every single map felt like it had its own unique moments, right? We think we had a different winner every single map, right? Everybody was playing the absolute best they could, knowing that this was the last chance. So, Dia, let's kind of take the 30,000-foot view over these last 6 maps and kind of give me your overall thoughts of our last and final Challenger Circuit.
Well, I definitely want to acknowledge most hated in this, because Dojo picked up a big win, and we've been talking about them a lot, but obviously with that 1st place spot going to them, it is the conclusion of what has also been a very long journey for this roster. They've always been in the conversation. They've been in that 3rd to 7th area. Most hated, a very talented roster that never quite topped the leaderboards. And when we came into today, they are a roster that we know is going to qualify, but as so many have pointed out, for the teams that have shown up here so often during the season, this is about more than qualification to the LCQ. It's about preparing for it. It's about demonstrating that you are at the top of your game. And I think that what we saw in the final moments demonstrated that. The ability to play these thin margins, to play for the singular couple placement points as opposed to throwing it all away. And it's growth that most hated have shown us. It's growth that the Challenger Circuit has shown us this year. We can separate it from what it was in ALGS year 2, and all of these teams have shown us some of the cleanest gameplay that we've ever hit Challenger Circuit floor. Now, they've also shown us some craziness, and Tom, I think you'll agree with me. But the growth that we've seen from individual players, and most importantly, from teams in their strategic values during this Challenger Circuit has been incredible.
And that's something I kind of wanted to ask Tom about, right? As we see some of these Challenger Circuit teams, make it into the LCQ, right? We're still kind of waiting on standings. There's some other things we got to worry about until we know exactly how many and who gets there. But Tom, when you have some of these Pro League teams that are going to be dropping down to the LCQ and you are having to go against some of these Challenger Circuit teams, what do you think that they have to look out for? Because I think, like Dia said, we have some very formidable teams that have come in here, and they've shown that they have what it takes to be just a squad that's going to be a problem on the map.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be really difficult for both sides, I think, to adjust to the other, because you kind of end up in your own little bubbles, right? You have the Pro League meta, you have the sort of the Challenger Circuit meta, and there's going to be a lot of trade-offs, right? Because some of these Pro League teams are going to have to watch out for things like contesting POIs, because in the Challenger Circuit, you face that many teams, you're always ready to contest your POI. All these teams have definitely contested in scrims. They've definitely been contested by some random team, in round 1, 2, or 3, and they're ready. These guys they're locked in. They've played so many games. They're so much more used to dealing with unknowns and dealing with variables, whereas the Pro League teams, have probably dropped the same spot for 2 years. They probably haven't contested it for a long time. These guys aren't contesting it for LAN, because these are the guys that aren't quite making it to LAN yet. So, that is the question is, how are these teams going to adapt? Are the Challenger Circuit teams going to be brave enough to sort of challenge? And there's a long time, right? The LCQ is not until sort of late July. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of time for these scrims to take place, and it's going to be really interesting to see exactly, how the Challenger Circuit teams react and how much respect the Pro League teams give them. Are they going to move off a contest, or are they just going to hold that ego all the way through? There's so many variables up in the air. But what is clear is the Challenger Circuit this year has really developed. And I think there's something compared to last year, and I say this from my experiences playing as well, is a lot of the top teams, they are really starting to play with LCQ in mind, with Pro League in mind. They are playing a style that I think will really translate towards that higher skill lobby. They are playing in a way, teams like the Crypt, teams like Donut Shop, teams that play that zone style, that RNG sort of, play to reduce their RNG, and where it doesn't matter what spot you really play from, as long as you can get to zone and you can get set up, you will be fine. And I think that some of these teams are really going to make a name for themselves in the LCQ. The Challenger Circuit is coming.
I love every bit of that. I'm right there with you. It's going to be so exciting to watch the LCQ and some of these teams be in there and battling it out, being able to see them go through, obviously, our 4 different events here in year 3 and see that they were able to get to the LCQ and really show that they deserve a spot at, obviously, that global LAN. I'm super excited. But, boys, that's all we got for Challenger Circuit, not only today, but for the year, for year 3. So, obviously we had Mello and Tenrek. They kind of gave their thoughts before they hopped off. I want to give both of you the same as well. Dia, we'll start with you. What has Challenger Circuit meant to you?
I'm going to keep this brief because my last point was really long-winded, and I also did it on EMEA this morning as well. But
valid.
But I know that we put in a lot of work here at TorchProd as a crew, talking about these teams all the time and making sure that we do them justice when we show up on game day. And I want to appreciate both of you, as well as Mello, Tenrek, and all the production crew for making that happen. And I want to appreciate the players and the audience for giving us your best as well. This works because we all do our best work and because we're passionate. So thank you for giving us your passion. We look forward to seeing you next year. Tom?
I mean, how do you follow that? I'm just trying to hold back the tears. I just want to say, this year the Challenger Circuit, it's been a big one for me. First time casting. I've made improvements as a player as well in the EMEA region. And I think what I love about the Challenger Circuit is that passion. You are so right. It's talking to people. It's waking up on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m., warming up for 4 hours, competing all the way through the weekend, then casting until 5 a.m. on a Monday. But where else would you do it? Because, we have such a strong community here in Apex. And, the Tier 2 scene, look, we know that there is, not hundreds of tournaments every week. And that, people grind. But take North America as an example. The reason why the North American Challenger scene is thriving is because one of the players has built an empire of scrims. Viz has built a whole community around scrimming. He's organizing, he's helping these players get together, you know. In EMEA, UTFT are organizing scrims, and it's great. The community helps the community, and I think it's been a real honor to be able to get involved in casting and work alongside people like Dia, Dandro, Tenrek, Mello, you know, all the great behind-the-scenes team, everybody here at TorchProd, and just help shine a light on, you know, things that people would miss, the average Apex viewer wouldn't see, to just really highlight that passion. And I'm really looking forward to seeing people that we have watched this year go on to have fantastic esports careers moving forward, not just as a player, but also, you know, all the talent we have behind the scene and in production as well.
I couldn't agree with more with what you both just said. It's been an honor to honestly be here. You know, listen, I come from the Call of Duty scene. I'm an outsider, and just to be welcomed in with open arms by all you guys when I ask just dumb questions while we're in the green room of like, why are they running this? And you're like, well, look at all this. Like, it's so cool to have everybody be able to come together. I feel like I've learned a lot. It's been awesome to be able to be here as part of the Tier 2 Apex scene, and I can't wait to see what comes more in the future. But like I said earlier, this is the last broadcast for us here at TorchProd and the Apex Spark series. So, you know, thank you to everybody for over these last 4 events who's been able to tune in, who's been cheering on their favorite team, and who's been watching some of these squads. And hopefully you continue supporting them as they kind of try and continue this journey into that LCU. But with that being said, that's all we have for you here tonight. So we'll see all of you in the next one. Have a great night, everyone.